Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto gets rejected by Rias part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. If adhered to its true definition as outlined in the dictionaries of her world, love was a pure and powerful emotion that one experiences towards someone whose happiness had unexpectedly become more important than their own. The most remarkable example of this sensation was that of God, a being who loved his children more than he loved himself. According to the ancient tales written in the sacred books of the underworld, the renowned god of heaven was believed to be the originator of this enchanting emotion, bestowing it upon his beloved children so that they, too, could savor the divine elixir that was love. It was because of him, and the emotion known as love, that the entities in his world were finally able to settle into a false peace. Without love, they would have been locked in an eternal battle against one another. Then why is my life completely devoid of it? Rias whispered to herself, her face contorting into a scowl as she gazed at the stars in the sky above. They looked as beautiful as ever, just like old times. Not a single flaw could be seen. They were flawless. And why wouldn't they be? They were supposed to exude serenity and strength, after all. Strong sadness engulfed her admiration as she recalled the deception inflicted upon her by her own family members. They have ruined my life, the red-haired girl whispered to herself, vividly recalling the unfair treatment she had endured for no valid reason. Throughout my entire life, I was always told to become a strong devil like them. But before I could prove myself, they discarded me like I was nothing more than a worthless object, throwing me to that monster. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away before they could fall and stain the ground. They were of no use now. If they couldn't change her life in the past, then she was sure they wouldn't change it now either. Now her entire life was being controlled by someone else, someone about whom she knew very little. The only thing she knew about him was that he was a powerful devil, and to ensure her safety under his protection, she would need to master her emotions and obey his commands. These seemingly insignificant emotions, such as sadness and anger, were her greatest enemies. If she didn't learn to control them soon, they would undoubtedly make her life a living hell. Rias still vividly remembers the words her mother-in-law said to her when they first met. If you want to experience the same happiness that your mother and I have, it is important for you to realize that you are now an integral part of Riser's life. Once you understand this, he will always treat you well. Rias knew her mother-in-law was lying when she spoke those words to her. There was no way she could be happy with a man who viewed women as if they were rare collectibles. Never. She could never be happy with him. But what other choice do I have? Her current life was nothing more of a tragedy. Never in her scariest dreams did she imagine that she would be forced to live a life with a man who viewed her as an object created to satisfy his lust. Rias despised it. She loathed it with all her heart. However, she couldn't escape from it, as it was now her sole means of survival. What was once a girl adorned with the bright feathers of freedom and contentment had transformed into a being that desired nothing but a merciful release from death. It's all my fault. I should have never backed down that day. Rias scolded herself, berating her lack of courage for the 1000th time. I should have jumped off that bridge. At least then I would have been free from all the troubles in my past. Her soft-spoken words went unheard as usual, and her heart sank even deeper into the valley of sadness. Thud. Her mind became blank as the unusual sound of footsteps echoed in her ears. Lady Rias, how many times must I remind you not to leave your apartment without informing me? A familiar voice made its presence known to the young lady. I was entrusted with the responsibility of taking care of you, and when you vanish like that, everyone holds me accountable for it. The monotone timbre of the individual's voice served as a sad reminder of the kind of life Rias was being slowly consumed by. Hell. I didn't want anyone to follow me here, Maihi. Just tell me why you are here and leave. The exasperated sigh that Maihi let out didn't go unheard by Rias, but after living with her for so long, she had grown accustomed to it. Those threats seemed hollow and insincere. Do not pretend you are in charge, Lady Rias. We both know that Master Riser is the one in control, and when he discovers you've left your apartment without me, he becomes very possessive. Despite Maihi's genuine tone of fear, it failed to rattle Rias, who simply continued to gaze at the stunning dark skies. A playful smile crept across Rias' face when she heard Maihi let out a defeated sigh. If there was one thing that brought a glimmer of excitement to her otherwise dull life, it was teasing Maihi for no apparent reason. It always brought her joy to witness the poor girl tremble and fume in response to her actions. Anyway, I just wanted to inform you that Lord Beelzebub has granted your request to transfer the responsibility of your peerage members to your mother. They are now under her jurisdiction, which means they are no longer included in the marriage contract. Now that sent a jolt of disbelief through Rias. Did she hear correctly? Lady Rias? Had her beloved brother actually done something by going against their father? Lady Rias, you there? Kiba, Gasper, Kaneko, and Akino. Tears began to stream down her face, and she made no effort to hold them back. Lady Maihi paused in the middle of her sentence, as the sound of Rias' sobs reached her ears. With a mixture of remorse and respect, she averted her gaze from the girl, unable to bear the shame that overwhelmed her. Whether she was a slave or not, she was still a girl who had emotions and could empathize with every feeling that Rias was going through at that moment. In a humble tone, she expressed her remorse. Forgive me, Lady Rias. However, as she attempted to distance herself from the girl, she was abruptly halted in her tracks. Thank you for letting me know, Maihi. Maihi fought to suppress her sobs, her lips trembling. You're welcome, Lady Rias. Rias' apartment. What are you planning to do with your daughter, Lord Gremory? I don't know, Marvin. She is good for nothing without that power. I know, that's why I asked, Master. Without that power, her significance in that contract diminishes greatly. She offers no meaningful contributions to that partnership. I am aware, but unfortunately, there is little we can do, my dear friend. Her lack of usefulness has already brought considerable disgrace to our household in recent years. I fear that she will only further tarnish our reputation with this marriage. That is somewhat. Slam! Silence engulfed the room as the shattering of glass echoed through the walls of the magnificent and luxurious chamber. Just look at her, Marvin. She is so pathetic. Master, please refrain from interrupting me this time. I need to vent my frustrations, and I request a moment alone with my daughter. As you wish, Master. Rias! A pair of beautiful blue eyes searched for an escape, their expression filled with shame and fear, as they found themselves cornered by the cold gaze of an individual who once used to regard her with fondness and admiration. Why are you so weak, Rias? Why don't you possess the strength of your mother and brother? Explain to me, I beg you, please explain. Tears began to well up within them, giving them a heartbreaking combination of vulnerability and shame. Look at me, my child. She didn't. She couldn't. Look at me, please. A sliver of hope and courage ignited within her when she heard her father's vulnerable voice. Perhaps, just perhaps, for once, he was being kind to her. Look at me, you pathetic excuse for a devil. Pain coursed through her mind as the biting words of her father pierced her ears. Do you realize the embarrassment I experience whenever I meet my friends and discuss you? It always results in them mocking me and my standing in our society. Your weakness is ridiculed everywhere I go. Rias trembled as the harsh words of her father pierced her thoughts. He was correct. It was entirely her fault. People claim that you are worthless without that power, and it infuriates me. Her eyes turned towards the ground, and she glanced at her small hands. If only I had that power, she thought as she tried to suppress her cries in front of her father. Without the power of destruction and potent magic, she knew she was nothing. They were the pride of her family, a symbol that had made them so reputable in the underworld. It was all she had, nothing more and nothing less. I should have sent you away to a private place where nobody could have known about you and your weakness before anyone could have found out. At least then I could have saved our family from embarrassment by telling these people that I have no daughter. And no daughter? Tears cascaded down her cheeks, leaving behind a trail of stains on the pristine marble floor beneath her as the bitter realization finally dawned upon her. It was all in vain, wasn't it? Her pleas, her cries, and even her precious tears held no significance for anyone. In their eyes, she was seen as nothing more than a pitiful, vulnerable girl who should never have been born into their family. Maybe after your marriage, I'll finally be able to lead a life free from the burden of shame. Pain and grief were swiftly replaced by fear when Rias heard those unsettling words. Marriage, she was going to be married to someone she didn't even know. Someone who was going to make her his slave, an existence even more unbearable than death. According to her caretaker, the boy to whom she was to be married was the epitome of everything she abhorred. He's just like my father. From what I have heard, the younger son of Lord Phoenix is a brilliant lad. I think he'll be able to have a positive influence on you, unlike your mother and brother. Control. Rias' remaining will crumble down in an instant as glimpses of her once attainable dreams began to materialize before her very eyes. They were beautiful and were the source of her conviction. It was because of them that she persisted in living a life devoid of love and happiness. They were more important to her than anything else, as achieving them meant being on par with her brother, something she was willing to sacrifice everything for. But soon, in a few years, I'll be left with nothing but broken dreams and despair. Her lips started trembling as thoughts of her future life flooded her mind. They were repugnant and cruel, completely contrary to the life she had always envisioned for herself. No, no, no! Draped in a thin layer of sweat and tears, Rias' face tightened a little as her dull blue eyes snapped open in shock, and found themselves fixated on the white ceiling above. The white plaster wall, the cold blue floor, and the white ceiling above all seemed to glare at her with an air of menace and audacity. It was as though they were mocking her for her unfulfilled dreams and perceived failures. Even the colors taunted her, as the purity and innocence of white were stolen from her life by her husband. The serenity, stability, inspiration, wisdom, and health embodied by blue were trampled upon just like the floor. You will be free from this contract, Rias. I promise you that. Resurfacing from the depths of her mind, a long-lost memory decided to reveal itself once more after countless years. Brother! A spark of anger ignited within her heart as she identified the voice in her mind. It was him, the person she used to admire above all others, the one who had vowed to liberate her from her chains. It was because of him that she started to envision those illusory dreams. He was the one who vowed to assist her in attaining the freedom she craved so passionately. Without her brother, Rias would have never become the person she is today. He planted false hope in her heart, and she accepted it unquestioningly. I should never have shared my dream with him. Maybe then I could have been like Eubelina, a puppet without dreams. Rias shook her head, muttering something under her breath. What am I thinking? She whispered. Despite being false, her dreams of freedom remained the only source of solace during her desolate childhood. Without them, she would have lost hope long ago. So, instead of getting angry at her brother, she should express gratitude towards him because he was the one who granted her that seed of hope. In her sorrowful and bleak childhood, her brother and mother were her only anchor, keeping her safe from being engulfed in a sea of despair. While she despised her own existence, her mother and brother cherished her without limit. To them, she was their princess, the one they were determined to protect at any cost. Sadly, by the time they could offer assistance, she had already slipped through their fingers, long gone. No need to dwell on them now. It will only worsen my mental health, Rias said as she left the comfort of her bed and headed towards the washroom. I need to meet Sona as well. Now that my school days are almost over, I believe it's time to cut my ties with the human world once and for all, Rias whispered to herself as she slowly rubbed the sleep from her eyes. Ko Academy was massive, Rias observed casually as she gazed at the colossal structure of concrete that loomed before her. It was beautiful, spacious, and bustling with life. The children coming in and out of the building added a charming touch to the establishment. Despite having seen the building many times over the past few years, no matter how much she gazed at it, the view never failed to captivate her. Its beauty and significance to her were, and would always be, indescribable. I wonder where Sona is right now, she whispered to herself, her eyes still fixed on the building. There was something serene about it, something that had always made her feel calm, no matter how panicked or sad she was. Perhaps it's because it used to be my second home. Her statement caused her to flinch as she realized that soon she would no longer be able to call it that. But it still provided me with many beautiful memories to cherish. This thought calmed her down a little, so she decided to momentarily set the subject aside. As she walked closer to the building, a rush of anxiety made her heart beat faster. She felt a profound sadness. There was no denying that fact. And why should she deny it? She had been an important part of this place for so long, pouring her heart and soul into it. Now, she was reluctantly saying goodbye to it, placed in the hands of strangers who were unaware of her life and dreams. Issei-kun, you are incredibly rude. Sona's distinct voice jolted Rias out of her stupor and compelled her to pivot towards the direction of the sound. Huh! Rias blinked in disbelief at the unusual sight unfolding before her eyes. A small, mischievous grin tugged at the corners of her lips as she noticed the strained smile plastered across Sona's face. It was evident that the girl was struggling with something, her face serving as a telltale sign. Per Sona, she wished she could laugh at her, but Rias knew deep down that laughter was beyond her reach now. The carefree days of sharing laughter with her friends seemed like a distant memory. All she could manage now was to put on a false smile for them. Bucho, you are embarrassing me in front of Rias-senpai. It wasn't that big of a deal anyway. I just praised her. Rias' attention shifted towards the boy. Issei, the moment her eyes met his, a wave of familiar energy overwhelmed her vision. His strength has increased, she couldn't help but notice as she tried to gather her thoughts. I'm glad he's doing well. The last time I saw him, he was struggling and facing various challenges. Perhaps Sona helped him sort things out. Ria's thoughts then took an unexpected turn as she remembered the time she had missed the opportunity to add him to her peerage. It was an incredibly easy opportunity to take advantage of, yet for some inexplicable reason, she chose not to. Rias couldn't bear to add another individual to her peerage, knowing that he would only suffer later in the fight against Riser. Of course, he possessed a sacred gear within himself, but even so, it would not have altered the outcome. Her defeat was unavoidable, and she wanted that no one else should bear witness to it. Now that I look at him, I can't help but wonder, did I make a mistake by not including him in my peerage? Her eyes turned to him once more, but instead of being repelled by that energy, she was met with nothing but a shallow pool of desire and illicit thoughts. Maybe not. What are you looking at, Rias? Rias' thoughts were yet again obstructed by Sona, who approached her with Issei closely in tow. Are you staring at Issei? If yes, then please don't. Issei-kun already has a significant struggle with girls, and I don't want you to provoke any second thoughts by gazing at him like that. The way Sona phrased that statement was odd considering she was supposed to be a calm and well-mannered individual. At that moment, she seemed distant towards her, which left Rias bewildered. This behavior was unfamiliar to her, as she had never witnessed her friend acting that way before. I was not staring at him, Sona. I was just thinking about something else. Are you referring to your marriage with that man by something else? Sona's words dripped with contempt and anger. Or abandoning this school and leaving us to live somewhere you don't truly belong, as Sona? Rias didn't know what her friend was trying to achieve with that sudden shift in her behavior, but fortunately for her, everything became clear when Sona opened her mouth again and started talking. Address me as student president, Rias. I am no longer your friend. Our friendship ended the moment you refused to accept my help that day, Sona declared, her eyes briefly glancing towards the crowd of students conversing in the opposite direction. If you had truly valued our friendship, then you would have seized Issei before me, but you didn't. You rejected him, just like everyone else who I had offered to you before him. Rias, who was listening to every word, felt a pang of guilt and regret. Don't suddenly act sad now, Rias. We can't change anything now, so it's better to move on from it. Sona gazed at the girl with a heavy heart. If you have come to collect your graduation certificate, rest assured it will be promptly mailed to your home under the supervision of a department representative. Rias felt an overwhelming wave of despair and grief as she noticed Sona's footsteps fading away. She watched helplessly as Sona walked further and further from her, unable to do anything but stare at her receding figure. I'm sorry, Sona, she thought, moments away from departing. However, her departure was halted by Sona's sudden decision to speak up. I'll also send some flyers along with your certificate, as there isn't much for you to do at home. Rias didn't need to ask why as her question was answered immediately. That will give you a reason to enjoy your final day here without the burden of her constant presence. Just inform her it's an errand assigned by me. With that said, Sona departed with Issei, leaving a sad yet somewhat relieved Rias in solitude. And Naruto-kun, Naruto Bibaka, goodbye, my one and only friend. A pair of blue eyes snapped open, fixated on the vast expanse of turbulent blue stretching beneath him, mirroring the turmoil within his heart. Blood? He recognized that thing. It was red, just like their lips and eyes. He had witnessed that thing, streaming like an untamed river beside the bodies of his friends, abandoned to rot and be consumed by scavengers that wandered the land. Their lives had no value, at least not in the eyes of the higher authorities who, when the time came, discarded them like disposable tools on their journey to success. Those who remained to fight soon perished in what could be considered one of the most harrowing battles of their lives. This battle held their world at stake, and in the face of such high stakes, sacrifices were inevitable. And so they were created, swiftly and efficiently. Thousands sacrificed their lives to preserve what they considered precious. Some held their families dear, while others believed that ensuring the safety of their village was of the utmost importance. He, too, was one of them, bravely fighting alongside others to protect what he considered precious, his friends. His friends were not just important to him, they were his entire world. His entire life revolved around them, particularly those two, his cherished teammates. Sasuke and Sakura. Even the mere mention of their names ignited a flood of painful memories he had struggled relentlessly to suppress over the years. Why? Those memories served as a powerful reminder of how much he failed as a savior, as a shinobi, and most importantly, as a friend. He was entrusted with their protection. My life is no longer worth living. I don't deserve to exist after having disappointed everyone, he muttered with a resolute tone, refusing to retreat from his imminent course of action. There was no reason to continue any longer, especially in this completely different realm. He had accomplished all that he was meant to do in his own world. Now, the only thing left for him to achieve was death. A cold and delightful slumber that would transport him to the enchanting realm where his loved ones awaited him eagerly. I hope that this time, I will be able to meet everyone, he thought to himself. His dull, damp eyes scanned the vast expanse of water for the last time before being swallowed by the darkness, leaving him to feel the chill of the uncommon night. His words evaporated from his lips and his eyes jolted wide open as he registered an unexpected voice from behind. Man, I miss those old days, Shiro. Naruto blinked as he wiped the tears away from his eyes with the corner of his sleeve. Yamato, those days were the best. Relieved, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief as both men appeared to be drunk and clueless about their surroundings from the sound of their voices. For a moment, he had thought that these two were the night patrol guards, but he was glad to discover that this was not the case. Sighting all alongside our mothers and enjoying the feud, Naruto's patience was wearing thin, especially Ramen. Hakata Ramen is best man. It's out of his world. That specific statement immediately caught Naruto's attention. Ramen, he thought to himself as he slowly sat down on the sturdy embankments of the bridge. It's a must tryy before you die, Shiro. Amazement flickered in his blue eyes as he tracked the men until they gradually disappeared into the obscurity of the night, paying him no attention whatsoever. It was as if he didn't even exist for them, but that wasn't what shocked Naruto. Instead, it was their words that captured his attention and ignited the flames of curiosity within him. Hakata Ramen, he reminisced about the name the man had given to the ramen. What makes it so special? His mind couldn't help but ponder the remarkable taste of ramen that compelled the man to deem it an essential dish to experience before dying. As he contemplated the exquisite dish he had recently discovered about, a chilling gust of wind suddenly swept past him, snapping him out of his trance. His focus shifted from the dish to the haunting memories of the losses he had suffered in the devastating war. No, I can't afford to waste another moment. They're surely waiting for me on the other side. I can't be tardy, not this time, he declared with resolute determination. Uzumaki Naruto stood at the edge, his heart unwavering, ready to take the final step toward freedom from this hellish existence. I'm sorry, everyone. Feeling the winds intensify and the waves surge in the river, Naruto raised his feet, preparing to leap with all his might for one final time. This would be his ultimate jump, a leap that would liberate him from the shackles of his past. Hakata Ramen? The most delicious ramen in the world. It's a must-try. Ramen. Shame shimmered in Naruto's eyes as he unfolded them to survey his surroundings. I want to eat it, were the first words that escaped his lips as he drew back his feet and sat down on the cold surface, feeling nothing but emptiness inside. I'm not sure if there is ramen on the other side. Why not give it a try before I die, he whispered, his voice completely devoid of any emotion. Was it inappropriate to request something like that while you were contemplating suicide? He was unsure. He had never attempted suicide before, but what he did know was that his shattered heart yearned for a bowl of ramen before leaving this world. It could be my final wish. A small smile dared to appear on his face at that comment, but his grief-filled mind murdered it before it could even leave a lasting impression. Hakata ramen? It had been a while since Naruto had picked up a book, let alone read one thoroughly to gain information about anything. A very popular variety of ramen. From what he had read, Hakata ramen was not just limited to the Hakata region and was available throughout most of the important cities of Japan. Although it originally originated in the industrial area of Hakata in the city of Fukuoka, this ramen quickly gained popularity, leading to its availability in shops all across Japan. Fortunately for him, the city he currently was living in boasted a shop that served this delightful ramen. Now, where is that shop? Naruto murmured as he began to flip through the glossy pages of the massive travel guide. Countless minutes passed, yet Naruto was unable to find any information about that particular ramen shop. It was as if the shop did not exist at all. Where could it be? You're disturbing the peace in the library, young man. Naruto halted, shifting his gaze towards the individual who had abruptly disrupted his quest. He found himself face to face with an elderly gentleman who appeared to be in his late 80s, emanating an air of self-assurance and venerable wisdom. The young man felt confused by the elder's insistence on maintaining silence, even when the librarian was not nearby. He knew that the rules only needed to be followed when the staff was in close proximity. Not even the staff followed it wholeheartedly. Whenever Shikamaru was nearby, the librarian girl would squeal, but she always made sure to apologize afterward. I'm sorry. In the end, it wasn't his world. It was an entirely different world, and he had no clue what was going on here, nor did he care to know. No problem, my child. The old man smiled at him with a gesture that took Naruto by surprise. There was something familiar about the man's smile. It reminded him of someone special, someone very close to his heart. Ero Sennin. And in an instant, his already shattered heart fragmented even further, as his mind raced through the treasured memories of that foolish and deviant fool. Tears welled up in his eyes, but before they could fall, Naruto took a deep breath and turned away from the man's wistful smile. The man surprised Naruto once again by placing a hand on his head and gently ruffling his bright blonde hair. What's wrong, boy? You look so sad. Every word the man spoke pierced Naruto's heart like a needle. No, Naruto responded quickly because the last thing he wanted was to have second thoughts about his ultimate objective. Even though he had become hardened on the outside, his heart and mind remained as fragile as they were during his first experience in that brutal war. I'm alright, just a little tired from the journey, he replied, attempting to alleviate any concerns. However, his response failed to satisfy the man, who continued to scrutinize him with his old eyes, reminiscent of warm honey. Certainly. At last, the man shifted his gaze and diverted his attention to the book that he had been engrossed in. Then, with a wise and aged voice, he inquired, Do you happen to be a passionate explorer? Yeah. I've been on a non-stop journey, discovering one city after another for the past few years. It was a lie and Naruto didn't think the man would fall for it, but he was thoroughly surprised when instead of laughing at his answer, the man gave him a knowing smile and continued to flip the pages of the book. From the look of it, he seemed to be searching for something within those glossy papers. But what? He thought. The man's response came in the form of a hearty laughter, a laughter that contradicted the old man's previous remark about maintaining silence in the library. Are you looking for Hakata Tonkatsu ramen? The man asked. Yes, but how? I have been listening to your musings for quite some time now. Another stifled chuckle slipped through the parched lips of the man, which irritated Naruto, who was bothered by the fact that the man had been eavesdropping on his personal affairs. The man was starting to resemble Jiraiya more than Naruto had anticipated. Anyway, I don't think you'll appreciate Hakata ramen, kid. Naruto was taken aback by the man's comment. What did the man mean by that? Why wouldn't he like Hakata Tonkatsu ramen? They were renowned for their rich broth and mouth-watering flavor according to those drunk men, and experience had taught Naruto that drunk people rarely exaggerated. What do you mean by that? He asked, his voice brimming with urgency. If this man was correct, there was no justification for him to waste additional time in this mysterious world. There's simply no comparison to the original Hakata ramen served in Fukuoka. Absolutely nothing can surpass it, not even the versions served in Tokyo. The words of the man finally began to make sense in a way. He is right, Naruto thought as he recalled the origin of the delicious ramen. They were first created there, so it was natural for them to taste spectacular in their hometown, but that didn't mean. Fukuoka's Hakata ramen is truly exceptional. You absolutely must try it. Okay. They taste completely different. Depression began to kindle inside his mind once more. How am I supposed to eat them now? He was once again defeated, but this time it was by nothing but his own luck. You should visit Fukuoka. It's not too far from here. The man's voice snapped him out of his melancholic reverie. Really? The man nodded. Only around 1,500 kilometers or so. Old wrinkled eyes curved down when they saw the disappointed look on the boy's face. For some reason, it made him sad. You can travel by Shinkansen, my child. It won't take long. He attempted to lift his spirits, but, regretfully, his sadness only deepened. I can't afford it, Naruto answered, surprising the man. I see. Now everything clicked inside the man's mind. The boy was poor. Then I regretfully cannot help you, young man, he said, appearing genuinely sorry for his inability to provide any help. He wanted to support but sadly didn't have the financial means to do so. Naruto solemnly nodded his head. It's not a big deal, really. I just wanted to taste it, he said, attempting to smile at the man. However, happiness was something that had left his side a long time ago. Now, his lips could not even form a fake smile. What once had been a sky full of kindling smiles was now nothing but a swamp of tears. The weight of sorrow and anguish had washed away those smiles. You should consider finding a source of income. Given your youth and good health, securing a job in the city shouldn't be too challenging. May I ask your age? 19. A smile spread across the man's face. Excellent, you could easily find a part-time job, young man. The joy in his voice quickly faded as the boy abruptly stood up and started to walk away from him. Hey, thank you for your time, sir. In that fleeting instant, the elderly man witnessed an overwhelming sense of hopelessness in those blue eyes. Hopelessness. Wait! Shouted the old man, causing Naruto to stop in his tracks. I'm sure you must have suffered greatly to have eyes like that, but remember this, scars of the past should not blind us to the potential for change in the future. It exists to remind us of what the future can be. Don't lose hope, young man. You will find your happiness one day. Naruto remained silent, steadfastly striding forward. Later that night, the air at the mountain top was bitterly cold, so cold that even Rias found it difficult to stand against. Perhaps due to her current mental state or perhaps because the nights were consistently colder than the days, Rias found it increasingly difficult to withstand the force of the wind today. Speaking of nights, the nights were dark and the darkness they brought was always dreadful, so dreadful that it made her realize how lonely she had become. What was once her favorite time of day had now become a moment she desperately wanted to ignore every time. The moon above, the stars beyond, and the stillness around no longer possessed the charm they once did. Once valued treasures of her heart, they were now mere reminders of her past suffering. I wonder what my friends are doing right now, Rias whispered, eagerly anticipating a response, but was instead met with a deafening silence that tugged at her heart. Ha! Rias blinked as the distinct sound of teeth chattering reached her ears. Confused by the sudden interruption, she slowly turned her head to the side and was surprised to see a boy sitting a few meters away from her. From the sounds coming from his mouth, Rias easily deduced that he was not faring well against the biting cold winds. His entire body trembled as he stood there, his clothing nothing more than a torn and worn-out top and trousers offering little protection against the cold. A part of her wanted to ask him to leave or, at the very least, get some clothes that could withstand the freezing winds. However, the voice of reason prevented her from doing so. Well, I'm not wearing any nice clothes either, she said with a small smile as Rias took notice of her outfit. Simple and understated, they were nothing more than a classic combination of a white t-shirt, black leather jacket, and navy blue shorts. They were diligently concealing her intimate parts, but apart from that, her entire body was nearly exposed to the harsh cold winds. Ha! Her ear perked up as the familiar sound once again infiltrated her senses. Her lips twisted into a scowl as Rias glanced to her side and spotted him once again, now shivering even more intensely than before. The sight was difficult to bear, especially knowing that the boy wouldn't survive the harsh cold of the night. Hey, stranger! Finally, she made up her mind to help him. Although she may have seemed dead and cold on the outside, she was still Rias Gremory, and Rias could never stand by and let innocent people suffer in front of her, no matter who they were. Hello? She squinted her eyes when she received no response from him. Hey, stranger, she called out again, this time with a stronger voice, but still got no answer. Confused and concerned, she cautiously approached the boy, keeping a watchful eye out for any sudden attacks. Thieves were quite common in this part of Ko, so it wouldn't surprise her if he was one. Once she finally reached her destination, she carefully assessed the boy, keenly observing every inch of his body, and to her immense relief, she discovered no signs of harm. Hey! She whispered, trying not to startle him with her unexpected arrival. A chilly gust of wind enveloped their bodies, causing their hair to wildly sway in the air. Amidst the dance of their hair, his captivating deep blue eyes met her mesmerizing greenish-blue gaze, leaving her completely enchanted and immobile. Her thoughts faded as she gazed at the emotions radiating in his eyes, leaving her speechless. Like her own, his eyes were desolate, overwhelmed with a sense of powerlessness and anguish. They seemed like a never-ending sea of sadness, which momentarily made Rias question whether she was staring into a mirror. Yes? Whispered the boy, his bright blonde hair gracefully falling back into place. Rias gulped, still stunned by what she had just witnessed. What she was rendered speechless, her thoughts spinning in chaos as she grappled with the overwhelming situation she found herself in. She wanted to see them. Her mind wanted to gaze into his eyes again. She wanted to see his beautiful yet strikingly familiar eyes, now hidden beneath his golden locks. For a moment, she couldn't comprehend what was happening to her, but eventually, the sad realization began to weigh heavily on her. He was just like her. Rias let out a soft sigh and calmly took a seat beside the boy on the sturdy wooden bench. She blinked gently, her concern growing as she observed the boy flinch away from her presence. Is everything all right? she inquired, her voice filled with genuine concern, her eyes fixed on him, noticing that he was still trembling. Why, yes. His response may have been brief and inconsequential, but the false strength and trembling in his voice bared his vulnerability, revealing everything Rias wanted to know. I see, however, she didn't make any effort to help him. Why? Because she was at a loss, unsure of what course of action to take. The situation in which she found herself was quite strange. How could she possibly assist him with his troubles when she was personally grappling with the same issue? Ignoring the subject completely, she fell silent and shifted her gaze towards the dark sky, fixating her eyes on the boundless sea of stars and darkness. She tilted her head in confusion as she noticed something unusual. It seemed slightly more bearable than before. But why? She whispered to herself. Just moments ago, the sky had appeared soul-crushing, as it had for what seemed like an eternity. But now, it looked different. It was the same sky, but it had a unique glow to it. Rias' eyes widened as another sudden gust of wind caressed her skin. Before she could fully grasp what was happening, her gaze was drawn involuntarily to the boy's face, yearning for another glimpse of his eyes. Her breath got caught in her throat as the boy's hair soared above his head, revealing a fascinating glimpse of his eyes once more. In those fleeting seconds, she took in everything, the sadness hidden in his eyes, the tears. She saw it all. What are you looking at? Rias snapped out of her stupor and immediately averted her gaze from the boy. And nothing. She stammered, shame evident in her voice. You're already married, the boy whispered, pointing to the stunning and valuable ring that shimmered on her finger. So don't even attempt to achu. Rias, who was staring at her ring with a somber expression, shifted her focus back to his hidden face upon hearing him sneeze loudly. Without hesitation, she swiftly removed her jacket and extended it towards the boy. There was a brief pause before the boy broke the silence. I don't need that, Rias shot back promptly. Why? Because I like these cold winds. That response left her speechless. How can he possibly enjoy these winds when he is obviously suffering because of them? Rias' mind once again began to drift, but this time she quickly regained control before it could wander any further. There's no need to worry about him, she concluded confidently. He knew exactly what he was doing, and she had no authority to hinder his actions. With that, the two fell silent again, resuming their activities from before they had engaged in that awkward conversation. Hey, stranger. After what felt like an eternity, the boy hesitantly opened his mouth again, readjusting his bright hair to get a better view of her. Rias was taken aback by his unexpected voice, but she maintained her composure and didn't turn her head towards him. She was determined not to appear interested in him, or anything of the sort. How can I make quick money? Although it was a question from his perspective, for Rias it was all she needed from him. That simple question helped her understand what she so dearly wanted to know from him. He's poor and has a lot of debt. Humans were like that. Unlike devils, they did not have an unlimited source of money, so it was common for them to find themselves trapped in a financial crisis. Are you listening? Rias blinked and glanced at the boy, only to bow her head in shame as she realized she hadn't acknowledged his inquiry. Yes, I was listening, she blurted out to correct her previous mistake. As for your question, I'm sorry, but I don't know of any job that can pay you a lot of money in a short time. Her shame-filled expression and remorseful tone earned her a small smile from the boy. It's okay, he whispered and resumed gazing at the stars. Rias couldn't help but feel sorry for him as she watched his pained expression. Based on her observations, the boy seemed to be a decent person, and witnessing someone in such distress brought back memories of her own experiences. If you don't mind, can I ask why you are trying to find such a job? She inquired, clearly fascinated by the reasons driving his pursuit. The boy stole a quick glance at her before averted his gaze. In that fleeting moment, it seemed as if he was deep in thought. I want to visit Fukuoka, he replied curtly, igniting Rias' curiosity even further. For what? He fell silent for a few seconds, then whispered, to taste the ramen there, completely unaware of the conflicted look on Rias' face. Ramen? Rias pondered quietly. That wouldn't cost much. If he really wanted to visit the place, all he needed to do was get himself a part-time job for a month or two. You don't need a lot of money for it, mister. You can earn enough through part-time work, she informed him, hoping it might uplift his mood, but strangely, nothing happened. The boy remained as stoic as he was when she first saw him. I need to go there right now. Why? Rias' face contorted into a frown as silence once again enveloped the atmosphere surrounding them. Anticipating a response, she was met only with the all-too-familiar sound of silence. Because I want to eat Hakata ramen before I die. Her thoughts dissipated the moment she heard his response. What? She struggled to comprehend the words coming out of his mouth. Did the boy really say that he was going to die after eating that ramen? She hoped not, because if it were true, it would mean that he was just as broken as her. I said I don't have much time left. So I want to eat Hakata ramen before it's too late. Lady Rias. Rias quickly distanced herself from the boy as soon as she heard Maihi's voice from behind. Maihi, she responded, aiming for a natural tone despite the tumult of emotions within her. What are you doing here, Lady Rias? Nothing, Rias answered. Then let's head back to your place. Dinner is ready. Who was that boy, Lady Rias? Maihi's question plunged Rias into a vast ocean of memories, some good, others bitter. Hey, stranger! Her lips almost curved up when his voice echoed through her thoughts yet again, making it tingle with sensations that she had long forgotten. Who was he? She didn't know, but he held something with which she was very familiar with: pain. When the wind had blown fiercely, causing their hair to flutter wildly, she caught a fleeting glimpse of his eyes, and that's when she saw them. Sadness, grief, defeat. Just like her, he was also suffering, perhaps even more, and that made her heart resonate with his. In a small and unexpected encounter, he was able to capture her interest, something her husband had failed to do in all these months. Lady Rias? Startled, she blinked and clumsily regained her balance as Maihi's sharp voice pierced the air. Huh! Confusion enveloped her momentarily, but soon her memory flooded back in waves. Maihi, I have no idea who he was, she replied to the girl. Oh, Rias nodded her head slowly. He was sitting very close to you. It gave me the impression that you must be his friend or something. Rias blinked. Friend? Rias hardly ever had any friends, except for a few. Making friends proved to be quite challenging, and keeping them was even more difficult. In the past, she had made genuine attempts to forge friendships and actually managed to succeed. However, she eventually chose to distance herself from those individuals after discovering that their only intention was to ridicule and torment her. That was not how friends were supposed to be, at least, not according to the book her mother had given her when she complained about not having any friends. We have arrived at your apartment, Lady Rias. Rias glanced up, a nod of acknowledgement gracing her features, as her gaze lingered intently on the entrance of her apartment. It was the only place where she truly felt at home, and it broke her heart to know that she would soon have to leave. Rias didn't even flinch when she heard Maihi's cry of pain and the sound of a body hitting the floor right behind her. Huh! She blinked as she heard the footsteps approaching and slowly turned to face whoever had made such a commotion. Dead bluish-green eyes met lifeless blue as the two locked gazes, each refusing to make a move. Hand over all of your money, immediately, Naruto whispered with a malicious tone, his voice laced with an undeniable threat that could send shivers down anyone's spine. However, to his great surprise, instead of displaying shock or fear for her life, the girl simply stared at him for a moment before reaching into her purse. Then, she calmly pulled out a stack of that green currency. Here, she mumbled, her expression as empty as a blank page. Take it. You seem to need it more than I do, she added, perhaps attempting to justify her peculiar behavior. That really caught Naruto off guard. How could someone simply surrender their money like that? It was evident that he was attempting to rob her. However, instead of putting up a fight or breaking down in tears, she simply surrendered everything without resistance. Maybe she is one of those rich girls who couldn't care less about money. He didn't want to appear foolish, so he quickly pocketed the cash. Finished, he thought to himself. Just as he was about to depart, the girl's voice stopped him in his tracks. If you need it, I have some more money stored in these drawers. Naruto was once again taken aback by the girl's strange conduct. Why was she so willingly offering him more money? Didn't she have any desire to keep some for herself? What kind of person would engage in such an unprecedented act? Not even the most affluent individuals would think to do such a thing. What do you mean? He inquired, taking a small step closer to the girl. Rias blinked at the boy standing right in front of her. Oh, I knew you had something in mind the moment I saw you on the mountain. Come on, let's go to my bedroom then, she whispered, making no attempt to push the stunned boy away. At this point, Naruto was seriously starting to get freaked out. What in the world was wrong with this girl? First, she was sitting alone at the top of the mountain, then she offered him more money than she should have in the first place, and now she was practically offering herself to him. Listen, he said, struggling to collect his thoughts in her presence. I have no intention of causing you any trouble. I simply need some money, nothing more. Please, give me the money and I'll be on my way. He concluded, hoping the girl would understand his predicament and allow him to leave. He no longer wanted to stay in her presence, for he knew that if he did, the burden of guilt in his soul would be too much to handle. For the second time that night, his words ignited a spark within Rias, a feeling she hadn't experienced in months: confusion. Just moments ago, she had opened herself up to him, yet he seemed indifferent. Judging by his appearance and clothing, he resembled one of those individuals who lived on the streets. It only increased her confusion further, as she knew she was beautiful enough that any one of them would instantly ravage her if given the chance, like she had given him. Breaking free from the endless cycle of pointless thoughts, she made the bold choice to engage in a meaningful conversation for the first time in ages. How unusual, she whispered in her haunting voice. Traveling so far, only to die at the end. Her gaze fixed upon the young boy, and briefly, she detected a hint of remorse within his eyes. By now, Naruto had ceased to question what was happening. It was clear that the girl was not in the right state of mind, and he wanted no part of whatever madness she was immersed in. All he desired was the money. Once he obtained it, he could savor the flavor of the ramen and depart this world in peace. It is of no concern to you. Just give me the money. Rias nodded and began to walk towards the counters, occasionally stealing glances at him to ensure he didn't attempt anything unusual behind her back. So, how do you intend to visit Fukuoka? she inquired, carefully sifting through the documents strewn across the counters. I mean by plane or train? Naruto fell silent for a moment, struggling to come up with a response to her question. What could he possibly say? He had no documents for travel, so he would have to make the entire journey on foot. I'll mostly be walking, he said, with an awkward expression on his face. The bluish-green eyes widened slightly. Walking 1,500 kilometers, it will take you months to complete this trip, stranger. Her words provoked an annoyed look from the boy. Naruto blinked at the familiar word. She had used it on the mountain to call him. I understand, but you don't need to worry about that. It's my responsibility to figure out how to complete this journey. He could feel the familiar weight of uncertainty settling in once again, knowing it wouldn't be long before he reverted to the bewildered guy she had met on the mountain. He needed to get away from here as soon as possible. Otherwise, his mind would start questioning her about trivial matters. No, I was just wondering if you'd be interested in accompanying me on a trip to Fukuoka, Rias replied, her expression impassive. For her, it was a situation with only positive outcomes. If the boy agreed, she would have the opportunity to explore and experience Japan before eventually being discovered and forced back to the nightmare that was Riser and her new house. If the boy disagreed, it wouldn't matter. She would return and accept her fate. While Rias was busy contemplating her future, Naruto, on the other hand, was staring at her in shock. Just now, he admitted to her that he was planning to commit suicide, and she still had the audacity to ask if she could go with him? Unable to contain his curiosity any longer, he asked the girl in a tone full of questions. Why? Do you want to kill yourself too? In response, Rias shook her head decisively. No, I have no intention of doing anything of the sort. I am happily married and living a good life. However, there is someone in Fukuoka whom I am excited to see, she replied as she forced a fake smile. If Naruto had been in his right mind, he would have immediately exposed the blatant lies that this girl was obviously spewing. However, he was not thinking clearly and simply did not care. He knew he was going to die anyway, so why should he concern himself with what this strange girl wanted? If she wanted to keep her intentions hidden, so be it. There was nothing else she could do to him. Very well, he agreed, giving a firm nod. However, you must bring extra money for your own expenses. I will not be sharing anything with you. Rias looked at him in confusion. But it's all my money. Fine, just grab your belongings and meet me outside. The girl might wake up at any moment. Rias didn't need to be told twice. There was no way she was going to miss this golden opportunity. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance for her. Okay. Just give me a minute and I'll be all set. I only have a few things to pack. Outside the apartment. Why does everything always have to be so complicated? Naruto pondered silently as he recalled the events that had just transpired a while ago. First, I messed up the dimensional travel, then I botched the suicide attempt on that bridge, and now I couldn't even pull off a robbery without acquiring something unwanted from it. Life was playing a cruel game with him, and he, like the shattered man that he was, could do nothing but endure the suffering. I swear I'm going to take all her money, and then we'll leave her. I'm ready. Her distinct voice made him turn in her direction. Naruto found himself utterly mesmerized by the ethereal beauty of the married woman in front of him. He couldn't help but wonder what made her stand out from everyone else. Was it her wealth, or maybe it was her exceptional genes? He didn't know. Overall, she was someone who, although appearing to be human, looked nothing like a human at the same time. Where is the money? He quickly realized that the girl didn't have a purse in her hands. Rias smiled at him, but this time Naruto saw right through it. It was a fake smile. I brought a credit card instead of money. It's much more convenient than carrying a bulky stack of money, and it'll also ensure that you don't ditch me halfway through our trip. Naruto whispered, unable to conceal the anger that was starting to manifest on his face. It seemed that despite her wealth, this girl was remarkably intelligent. Are we all set to start our journey now? Naruto gave a firm nod. The name is Naruto, he murmured after a long pause. Rias, replied Rias without delay. The two fell into silence once again as they started walking along the deserted streets of Kuo. Phoenix Manor, Underworld. Riser Phoenix, the youngest son of the prestigious Phoenix House, scowled angrily as he strode through the halls of his family's grand manor. Rias. He had just received the news from Maihi about Rias' disappearance, and it was not the only thing that was weighing heavily on his mind. Despite having sent his finest trackers to the human world, he was still unable to locate her whereabouts. It's my mistake. He should have known that leaving Rias alone in the human world with just a single member of his peerage would eventually lead to the current predicament, but he couldn't go against his mother's decree to let her finish her school. Perhaps that had been her plan from the beginning. First, deceiving my mother with her sugary words, only to later betray her trust when the opportune moment emerged. Riser thought bitterly as he continued walking toward a particular room. In some way, it was his mistake too. After defeating her in that fight, Riser was so elated that he didn't even hesitate to follow his mother's orders to allow Rias to return to Ko and finish school. In addition, he only dispatched a single member of the peerage after her, instead of sending more, which he would have done if he weren't so preoccupied with his victory. Having arrived at his destination, Riser solemnly knocked on the door to his father's study. He waited patiently for permission to enter before speaking. Father, we have a problem. An unknown town. As Naruto arrived at the entrance of the town, he couldn't help but notice that this place bore a striking resemblance to the previous town he was in. The pavements were adorned with trees and houses, most of which were small, although a few were grand enough to be considered mansions. The two towns were so similar that, for a moment, he felt like he was back in Ko. He blinked and turned his gaze to his traveling partner. Her visibly relaxed demeanor puzzled him, but he chose not to comment on it. She seemed to be in a hurry to leave Ko for some reason, but he resisted the urge to comment and instead let her take the lead. It was her personal matter, and the last thing he wanted before dying was to interfere with someone's personal affairs. That had caused him significant trouble in the past, and he simply didn't have the mental stamina to endure anything similar again. Rias, the words spoken in a soft tone, defying the speaker's rugged looks, broke through Rias's stupor. She hadn't been thinking about anything specific, as always. All her thoughts now revolved around what-ifs. Her blue eyes turned towards him, silencing him once more. Her voice was as alluring as ever, as was her entire demeanor. It seemed as if she was born to captivate people with her charm, and if the ring on her finger was any indication, then Naruto would say she was quite skilled at utilizing that ability. Snapping out of his useless thoughts, Naruto glanced around, taking note of the darkness that had begun to devour the sky in its gloomy grip. What time is it? It seems quite late, he whispered. Oh, it's already 8 o'clock. Scanning her surroundings, Rias spotted a nice little restaurant that seemed more than capable of satisfying their dinner cravings. However, a glance at her companion gave her pause, causing her to temporarily delay their entrance into the business. Right now, he looked like your average homeless person in his current attire, someone the staff probably wouldn't appreciate. A small shopping stop was in order before dinner, she decided. Naruto, she called out, amazed by how quickly he responded and shifted his attention towards her. I believe it's about time both of us buy some new clothes. Don't you agree? She asked, gazing at him serenely as he quietly examined his tattered attire, his face filled with a touch of sadness. Yes, she nodded. Then come with me. I remember seeing a small clothing store nearby. Did you pack anything else? Shame shimmered in his beautiful blue eyes as he whispered, no. Essentials? This was quite a predicament for the young blonde shinobi, whether former or not. Embarking on a journey without proper provisions was simply unacceptable. I didn't have enough money to purchase. Rias didn't require any further explanation. The look of embarrassment on his face revealed all she wanted to know. All right, there's no need to worry. I actually need to purchase a new SIM card, so she momentarily paused, considering her next words. If you'd like, I can also take care of buying clothes and other items for you. Sure, take your time. I'll be waiting right here, Naruto replied casually, not bothering to inquire about the concept of a SIM card. Huh? Her surprise was evident in her voice. What do you mean by that? Don't you want to choose clothes based on your preferences? She asked him. In response, Naruto gently shook his head. No, he mumbled as he sat down on the cold tiles of the footpath. I don't want to visit any shops right now. But, his blue eyes met her stunning blue eyes, and for a moment, Rias found herself speechless. I trust your judgment, Rias. His words reignited something within her. She didn't know what they did, but they did. I'm confident you'll choose good clothes for me. Now go, or else we'll be late. She nodded. Fine. I'll be back shortly. With that said, she immediately vanished into the town, hesitant to look back at the strange boy who had just surprised her with his strange words. Near shop. As Rias walked along the empty road of the beautiful new town, she couldn't help but wonder if she had made a grave mistake. She wasn't meant for this. Journeys and joy were foreign concepts to her, especially with someone she knew nothing about. But he seems nice. She tried to reason with herself, remembering how the boy had welcomed her bizarre proposition without any objections when they first met. Nice? The voice inside her mind sneered in disgust. No one was nice in her world. Everyone was a predator, ready to devour each other's souls at any given moment, and Naruto would be no exception. He had already shown his true colors when he decided to rob her, and she was certain that sooner or later, he would reveal his ulterior motives or exploit her vulnerability when conditions turn in his favor. It was inevitable. He doesn't seem to be that type of person. He didn't take advantage of me when he robbed me, even when I offered. He could have, but he didn't. She paused, her mind throbbing with pain and prompting a crucial realization. What did she truly understand about people? Absolutely nothing. They were an enigma to her. Their emotions and schemes, even more so. She could argue that she knew a little bit, but even that would be a gross exaggeration. Even her own father was a mystery to her. She knew nothing about him, and the hate that he held for her. Sure, she knew it was related to her being a weak devil, but still, she couldn't fathom the depth of his hatred. So, trusting Naruto was like trying to decode her father's mysterious hatred for her. It was absurd and ridiculous. Then why did I decide to follow him? She could remember feeling a surge of excitement when she had asked him if she could follow him, but she couldn't understand why. Why did she feel such a strong pull towards him? She couldn't think of an answer. At that moment, her logical side had reminded her that there was potential for freedom on this path, and she must seize the opportunity when it presented itself. And so she did, not wasting a second more than required in giving her reply. But was that the only reason? Or was there something more? Her mind turned into a conundrum for her as multiple thoughts flowed in and out, creating a web of confusion. Yet her inability to understand remained, as the right thought continued to elude her. Maybe I'm finally losing my mind. She couldn't help but laugh at her own situation. What used to be a happy and fearless girl was now nothing but a broken shell of her past self. I have let everyone down, even myself. With a heavy sigh, Rias began to walk towards the closest shop in the vicinity, hoping to find some decent clothes for her traveling companion. He really needed them since his current clothes were unsuitable for travel. They were a giveaway and a surefire way to attract unwanted attention if someone were to see her with him. It wasn't long before she finally found a store that catered perfectly to her needs. It had everything she wanted, from essential amenities to beautiful branded clothes. Everything was laid before her eyes. "Welcome to our store, ma'am." The shop manager's voice, distinct yet soothing, welcomed Rias back to reality. Without hesitation, she mustered a polite smile in response, determined to conceal the turmoil within her. "Thank you," she replied with a slight tremble in her voice as she slowly entered the main section of the store. "Excuse me, is there something specific you are searching for?" the courteous saleswoman asked, gracefully positioning herself before the customer, fully prepared to offer her assistance at any given instant. Rias came to a halt, turning to fix her gaze on the store owner. "What do I need?" With a pensive expression, she meticulously surveyed the extensive selection, her piercing teal eyes taking in every detail. Her mind wandered as she tried to recall why she was even there in the first place. "I trust you, Rias. I'm sure you'll select fine clothes for me." A strange sensation of warmth enveloped her entire being as she reminisced about her companion's words. "Clothes, I need to find suitable clothes for him," she promptly responded. "Clothes for whom?" In an instant, the warmth deserted her body, leaving her engulfed in nothing but loneliness and a baffling question for which she had no answer. "Whom?" she repeated deliberately. What did he mean to her? Was he a friend? She didn't think so, as he had already made that clear. Then was he an enemy? No, not an enemy either, because if he was one, then he wouldn't have helped her at all. Then what? A sense of confusion clouded her mind. As Rias was lost in her internal debate, the shop owner was carefully examining her customers' clothing. To say she was pleased would be an understatement of the century. She was thrilled beyond words because after so many years, she was finally going to serve a rich customer, and everyone knew what that meant. Money, a fortune beyond comprehension, but to secure that, she first needed to fulfill the girl's wish. So mustering the most radiant smile she could manage, the lady giggled softly. "Ma'am, it's completely fine if you don't want to share any information." The shop owner trailed off, her curiosity piqued as her eyes caught something spellbinding wrapped around the finger of her customer. "A ring! Oh my God!" she exclaimed at the mere sight of it. "You're already married, ma'am?" She looked at the stunned girl, with surprise still noticeable in her voice. "And then why yes," the lady sighed. "You are so lucky, ma'am." "Lucky?" Rias blinked at the woman in confusion, and was about to ask her why she was behaving like that but stopped when she saw the joy in her eyes. The ring. Everything started to make sense in her mind, and soon a small smile flickered on her lips. It was rare to find people who could be genuinely this happy for others. "I don't think so. I'm certain there are plenty of people who are even luckier than I am," she finally responded. The sound of small giggles echoed in the room as the owner began to laugh at Rias. "Ah, you are so cute, ma'am. If you are interested in purchasing clothing for both yourself and your husband, we have a fabulous section dedicated to matching luxurious and branded attire for couples. Would you like me to show it to you?" Rias refrained from correcting the lady once more, disinterested in everything at this point. Her life, already a tragedy, wasn't going to be changed by the meaningless words of a stranger. "Sure," she replied. "Okay." And so, Rias began her search for the finest clothes in the store for her husband. Phoenix Mansion. "You imbecile, Riser! How could you let this happen?" Revan, the head of the Phoenix House, yelled at his youngest son in disbelief, cursing him for the foolish mistake that had led the Phoenix House into this debacle. Riser sighed at his father. "Don't worry, father," he began. "It's just a minor issue, nothing more." Revan let out a frustrated grunt. "Minor? Seriously, Riser? Your wife has eloped with a stranger, and you're suggesting it's a mere trifle." "No, it's not. She is your wife, Riser. She's the lady of your house." Blue clashed with blue as Riser rose from the opulent chair, striding purposefully towards his father. "I will locate her," he hissed with unwavering determination. "She is mine, father, and I do not let my possessions be used by other people, especially a mere human." "What are you planning to do now? She seems to have vanished without a trace." At that moment, Riser started laughing like a maniac, a laugh that even startled Revan for a moment. "You don't have to worry about that, father. It's my problem," and his smile became even more devious. "And I'll deal with it myself." Revan remained unconvinced. "And what about that boy? Based on what Maihi told me, he doesn't seem ordinary. According to her, he possesses an unusual speed for a human being," he whispered. The devious smile transformed into a sinister grin. "Fast? Human? Oh, father, please. He's nothing more than a mere mortal. His lips quivered with anticipation. Riser, I'll kill him. The moon resembles her eyes. Pale, yet vibrant with life, Naruto whispered, his gaze fixated on the breathtaking, luminous sphere in the sky. It was both magnificent and sad to look at. On one hand, it reminded him of her radiant smiles, warm words, and mesmerizing eyes. On the other, the patches on its otherwise pristine surface served as a poignant reminder of the scars that marred her body during the war, and the haunting smile she flashed at him before departing the world in his embrace. You were silly, Hyuga. You should never have loved me. I didn't deserve any of that, he murmured silently while gazing at the moon, hoping that the girl was listening to him from far above in the sky. You should have let me die that day with you. I would have been happier that way. I don't appreciate anything here. The loneliness inside me is slowly killing me, and my heart can't help but long to be with you. Perhaps then I can fall in love with you. His eyes glistened slightly as his mind remembered her confession during Pain's attack. It was one of the rare moments in his life when someone actually told him that they loved him. Before that, only Irika-sensei and Ero-sennin had done so. Her confession was pure, filled with nothing but unconditional love for him. It was so genuine that for an entire week, he struggled to come up with a suitable response to her heartfelt words. What was he supposed to say? That he didn't feel the same way at that time? No, he couldn't do that to her. She was too pure and kind-hearted for such a revelation. Thus, he ultimately chose to remain silent on the matter. That was the biggest mistake of my life. If he had been honest about his feelings for her, then maybe, just maybe, she might have stopped loving him, and then she would have never made such a sacrifice for him. He was her killer. She perished solely because of him. It was her love for him that brought about her painful death. Out of all the deaths that occurred during that war, her death was one of the most painful to witness. He still remembers her smiling face as she fell beside him with dozens of sharp splinters embedded in her back. But even in her final moments, she never failed to remind me of her unwavering love. Loved you? The sudden sound of Rias' voice startled him, almost causing him to jump in surprise. What? When did you come back? He stammered, nervously scanning his surroundings for something interesting to focus on. What was her deal? Every time he tries to act normal, she appears out of nowhere and takes him by surprise. The redhead blinked at her partner and asked, What do you mean? Didn't I tell you I would be back shortly? Her tone carried an equal amount of surprise, matching his. Yeah. You're right, he murmured softly. Rias couldn't help but notice his unusual behavior, and the tears welling up in his eyes. She knew that something was troubling him, evident by the dull expression etched across his face. However, at that moment, she found herself unable to pry into his personal life or delve into his past, so she did the most rational thing at the moment, and didn't talk about it. Anyway, I bought some clothes for us, she said, holding out the shopping bags to him. Take a look at them. If there's something you don't like, just let me know, and I'll exchange it for you. His calloused hands brushed against the delicate skin of her hand as Naruto took the bags from her light grasp and brought them close to his face. His blue eyes lingered on the clothes for a moment before returning to her. They are quite nice, he replied in a humble and unexpected way that caught her off guard. Aren't you going to try them first? What do you mean? Do you want me to try them in front of you? Rias blushed and awkwardly took a step back. No, she stuttered. Her words were abruptly interrupted as a pair of unfamiliar hands seized her from behind and forcefully pulled her towards the assailant, firmly clasping her slender waist. A sudden breeze of putrid, warm breath invaded her nostrils, causing immediate feelings of nausea due to its foul odor. Look at what we have here, boys. A stunning and wealthy girl traveling solo with a blonde punk. The man's grip around her waist tightened as he delightfully took in the scent of her perfume, lasciviously grinning at his composed companion standing beside him. Tama-senpai, what do you think we should do with this girl? One of the subordinates inquired, positioning himself deliberately between Rias and Naruto. Shall we kill her and seize the money? Gently, his slender fingers grazed her soft cheeks, giving them a slight squeeze. Or should we have some fun with her? Before he could fully express his perverse thoughts, blood gushed out of his mouth and his brown eyes rolled back into his head, as Naruto's sudden backhand fiercely struck his right cheek, abruptly silencing him. Everything happened so quickly that for a moment, the leader of the group couldn't even comprehend what had just happened right before his eyes. With a resounding thud, the man's unconscious body plummeted to the ground, sending a billowing cloud of dust into the air. A palpable sense of fear gripped the unwanted intruders, permeating deep into their very souls. The group's leader, Tama, started to shake violently as a sense of dread filled his mind. Unable to speak for some time, he hesitated to utter a word from his mouth, fearing that he might provoke the boy in front of him. Guys, he shifted uneasily, casting nervous glances to his sides and swallowing audibly. Go, get him. Unfortunately, his order failed to have the intended impact. Instead of charging straight towards the ominously silent boy, his subordinates started to step back in fear, a reaction he hadn't noticed he was mirroring until his head lightly bumped into an electric power distribution line pole. Let her go. It was the most acceptable sentence to say in that situation and was spoken in a very calm voice, but for the already scared goons, it felt like an ironclad command, enough to strike fear and establish tyrannical authority within their trembling hearts. Hee hee. Tama's weak laughs were futile at that moment, not nearly enough to provide sufficient cover for his feeble attempt at bravado. Stay away from us, punk. His hands began to sweat, leaving greasy marks on the gorgeous dress that was covering Rias' body, a reflection of his anxiety and fear. Naruto disregarded his words and continued to advance toward the anxious thugs. As he approached them, he couldn't help but notice the lack of interest in Rias' eyes. It was as if she was indifferent to everything happening around her. Leave her alone. But he did. Cold and dull as he might appear these days, Uzumaki Naruto was still a boy who deeply cared for his comrades, and Rias was one of them at this moment. Tama gulped as he locked eyes with the blonde. Within a few seconds he slowly withdrew his hands from the girl's waist, being careful not to provoke any further reaction from the boy. Powerful as he may have been, he still lacked the strength or any kind of weapon to confront that idiot. Sure, he whispered through gritted teeth, seething with anger. Now leave. The sound of teeth grinding grew louder as Tama watched the girl walk away, his eyes fixed on her swaying rear in a hypnotizing manner. The subtle and involuntary sways of her buttocks were like elusive trophies and constant reminders of his humiliating defeat, provocatively taunting him with the reminder of exactly what he had lost today. He had the opportunity to have her all to himself, but no, the boy ruined everything. Leave. Tama let out a low growl, but wisely chose not to defy the blonde's command. He knew it would be detrimental to his well-being, without a doubt. His companions quivered in fear, and he too was filled with fear. So after swallowing the shame that had been building up in his throat, Tama began to slowly move away from the pair, gesturing for his friends to do the same. You know nothing about us, boy. We are the Yakuza, he whispered with an air of secrecy. We control these dark streets, and believe me, when I say you will suffer greatly, I absolutely mean it. Seething with rage as he saw that his threat had absolutely no effect on the boy, he and his boys vanished into the thin air, leaving behind no trace of their presence. Silence engulfed the surroundings, its tension palpable, as the boy and girl locked eyes, either willing to break the intense gaze. It was extraordinary because without speaking a word, a lot was conveyed between those two. You know, after a while, Naruto finally broke the silence, his voice as serene as it was when he had first encountered her. I really need to change my worn-out clothes as they are starting to make me feel rather uncomfortable. Rias nodded, her eyes fixed on his face without wavering. Very well. I will turn around. No. I'll find somewhere else to change, not here. You don't need to turn around or anything. A wave of sadness washed over her, causing her to fall silent for a moment as the burden of reality finally sank in. He was on the verge of leaving her. She could discern it in his gaze. And who could blame him? A member of the feared Yakuza had just forewarned him about the painful future that awaited him. She was certain that any rational individual would do exactly what he was about to do at that very moment. There was no reason for him to linger by her side any longer. I understand, she softly uttered, her eyes filled with tears, as she attempted to bid her final farewell to the young man. Very well. Naruto wasted no time and vanished into the dark embrace of the night, leaving behind a desolate and heartbroken Rias standing alone on the icy road. Goodbye. Deep into the forest. Tama was furious. No, he was enraged. The overwhelming emotion coursing through his veins was indescribable. It was terrible and was making him feel like a coward and a loser, like a pathetic and helpless worm who couldn't achieve anything in his life without the assistance of others. He let out a furious roar of humiliation, catching his dim-witted subordinates off guard as they lazily lounged against the tree trunk. I need her. Another loud growl escaped from his mouth, and once again, no one dared to utter a single word in response. That girl, he paused, trying to recapture the extraordinary sensation of her smooth skin. It was incredibly soft, as if he were touching something otherworldly. Her hips were amazing, but her were even more captivating. The memory of those beautiful, soft mounds of flesh lingered in his mind, filling him with an undeniable desire to caress them once more. He desired to knead, suck, and squeeze them until they were dry. Yes, that is what he desired. Leave her. Thomas scowled as the voice of that despicable bastard echoed in his mind once more. Damn that scumbag, he stole my girl. She was meant to be my fuck doll, not his. Did you guys see how she was looking at him? I can't believe this. I'll show him his place soon. Nonsense was all he could speak at that moment, as there was no way he could fight that boy alone. That boy sent one of his followers into coma with just one punch. One fucking punch. How was that even possible? I need to reach out to more individuals. Tama was feeling horny, but not without a hint of self-preservation kicking in. He had the uncanny ability to deduce a person's power with just a single glance, and he was absolutely certain that the boy was someone he should under no circumstances confront alone. More people means more power, and then we will show him the true strength of our group. A sinister grin stretched across his face as he imagined the things he would do once he finally had her under his control. The very idea of dominating her filled him with a disturbing sense of pleasure. He pictured himself consuming her, while allowing the others to watch, as it's not often that a big-titted woman carelessly wanders into their territory. I'm going to milk her dry first, and then you guys can do whatever you want to do to her. Tama would have continued spewing his depraved monologue, but abruptly stopped when he noticed something unusual around him. Guys? There was silence everywhere, and no matter how hard he tried to listen, he couldn't hear anything, not even the rustle of leaves, and that made his heart race at an abnormal speed. For a moment, Tama felt as though he might have a heart attack when an eerie voice suddenly filled his ears. The voice was chilling, devoid of emotion. However, driven by his ego, he made the decision to put on a facade of confidence and turned around, only to be confronted with the embodiment of evil in the shape of another person. What? His mouth went dry and his mind went blank when, instead of seeing the familiar face of the boy, he was confronted with the lifeless body of one of his minions. It was brutally mangled and flowing with crimson blood from every pore. Rias? Is that her name? A sinking feeling surged within his heart as the voice gently brushed against his ears once more, this time from behind. Cold and devoid of emotion, it was even more terrifying now. Do not turn around, do not. He didn't know about the cut, but curiosity was going to get him killed for sure if he turned around. Like a helpless bystander, who could only stand and witness his world crumbling before his eyes, Thomas screamed loudly when someone zoomed past him. It was so fast, incredibly fast, that he couldn't even see it. The only way he could feel it was through the whistling of the wind around him. You were planning to kill me, weren't you? No! Tama wanted to scream, to flee, and above all, to apologize to the devil standing before him. But I can't say anything. His lips remained tightly shut as he was consumed by an overwhelming fear. In his lifetime, he had encountered numerous maniacs, himself being one of them, but never had he encountered someone so silent yet so deadly. Do it, Squelch! The leader of the gang cowered in fear as crimson mist began to rain down from the ominous, thunderous dark skies above. What is this? He held out his hand and ran it through the unrelenting downpour, capturing a few drops of the crimson liquid. Gently caressing them between his fingers, he began to analyze them. It didn't take long before another wave of fear and dread engulfed his mind. Blood! His eyes shot up to face the sky as Tama gulped, witnessing a horrendous scene beginning to take shape right before him. Takashi, there he stood, his oldest and most loyal subordinate, hanging lifeless from the wooden branch above. His eyes, once vibrant with life, now empty, nothing but the hues of death. They were staring at him, blaming him for their owner's state. It was his mistake. He was the reason why everyone had died at the hands of the monster lurking behind him. Kill me. Rape that girl. Death was inevitable. Taka could feel it deep within his heart. Sooner or later, he knew that he was going to meet his end too, and that realization weighed heavy on him, making the whole situation even more unbearable. His life was never meant to end like this. He was destined to reign over this city. Every individual was destined to be under his leadership, laboring tirelessly as he relished the delightful fruits of their labor. Girls, they were meant to be his toys, solely existing to fulfill his carnal needs and temptations. Where exactly did everything go wrong? Thud! Brown eyes flickered once again in the dark and widened ever so slightly when a lifeless body, punctured thoroughly in brutal wounds, collapsed before them. So Zentaka didn't even have enough time to weep for his friend when, to his dismay, another lifeless body, once again bearing ghastly gashes, plummeted before him. Ray, he murmured, his hands shaking in fear and a twisted sense of anticipation. Everything continued for a while until his mind suddenly recalled the monster's words and began to function in opposition. Thrill. Forgetting about the dreadful fear of death, his heart began to ache with a thrilling anticipation of what was about to come next. It was nauseating and pathetic that, even on the brink of his demise, he was more excited about violating and brutally indulging in the body of a girl. Even now, when he was certain that his life could end at any moment, just thinking about that girl filled his heart with euphoria and longing. He wanted to see and ravish her before the death that was waiting for him at the end of the road could claim him. It excites you, doesn't it? The boy's distinct voice echoed in his ears, eliciting a ravenous grin on his face. The very idea of touching that girl brings a sense of euphoria, right? Tama nodded in agreement. Yes, he acknowledged, fully embracing the fact that he was beyond redemption. This realization only added to the excitement of the moment. Then grab my hand, Tama, the boy said, finally revealing himself to Tama for the first time since he had started tormenting him. I'll guide you to her. Every cell of his body tingled with excitement and awe when Tama's eyes met those golden orbs of bliss. They were beautiful and enchanting, a fact that Tama immediately noticed when his hand seemed to rise of its own accord and grabbed the boy's hand. Squelch! It started with a minor irritation but soon became unbearable. Ack! Tama howled in agony as blood spattered from his palm, staining the ground below. You bastard! What have you done? He screamed, scanning the area in front of him, only to gasp in disbelief as he found it empty. Huh! He struggled to move, but to no avail. Ack! He grunted, attempting once more with no success. Frustrated and frightened, he peered down, seeking to uncover the source of his immobility. No. Back to Rias. It was over. There was nothing she could do to reverse it. Her heart, which had once been enamored by the stunning and captivating scenery of the town, now beat in silence within her chest, as it anxiously awaited the unavoidable conclusion of her journey. Rias struggled to find the words to express the overwhelming emotions surging through her. It was unfair. Consumed by her unbearable thoughts, she realized that her mind had been right about everything it had warned her about earlier. In her world, everyone was alike, greedy and corrupt when they needed her, but cowardly and uncaring when she needed them. And Naruto was no exception. Just like everyone else in her life, he had abandoned her when she needed him the most. His departure from her life was as sudden as his arrival. I had at least hoped to travel and see more of the world before he left, though. A pang of disappointment struck her as a pathetic smile bloomed on her lips, and just as she was about to wander off, a familiar voice stopped her dead in her tracks, causing her heart to skip a beat. Rias. Her eyes widened, and her heart skipped a beat as soon as she heard his voice. It was incredible, so much so that for a moment it felt like music to her heart. And Naruto, she stuttered, shaking lightly with the rush of emotions his voice had stirred within her. Hey, you can turn around. I have changed my clothes. A smile, a big and very genuine smile, made its way to her plump lips. I know, she whispered, her voice trembling as she avoided making eye contact. Her mind raced, afraid that if she turned around, her delusions would be confirmed, and it would shatter her fragile heart. Naruto, who was standing a few meters away, didn't know what was going on and dismissed it as just another strange trait of the girl. After all, Rias was a rather unusual individual. There was something unique about her, but he couldn't quite grasp what it was. Okay, he mumbled. Anyway, what took you so long? Her feeble voice caught Naruto by surprise. The chef took too long to prepare our dinner. Oh, the lack of proper response to his questions and her constant refusal to turn around was making Naruto increasingly uneasy now. Are you alright, Rias? He couldn't help but ask, as having a sad companion meant more despair, and facing more despair was something he wasn't prepared to handle anymore. When he first embarked on his journey, he never imagined he would admit it, but he found himself favoring the previous, odd yet quirky Rias, with whom he had shared that apartment for 5 days, over the current Rias. Yes. I'm fine. He noticed her nod, but she still refused to face him. Cracks in her voice had become evident, and Naruto was not easily deceived by feigned composure. Would you prefer some time alone? If you want, I can. No. Shining drops of liquid lashed around in a horizontal arc in the night sky as Rias abruptly turned to face him. Don't leave me now, she yelled, shocking Naruto with her vulnerable voice and tear-streaked face. Rias, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Her voice faltered for a moment before she bowed her head in embarrassment. The silence spoke volumes to Naruto, conveying everything he needed to know. Sometimes, words were unnecessary when silence could communicate so much more. The Hyuga girl had unintentionally reinforced this valuable lesson. The food is getting cold, he murmured, interrupting her. If she wanted to keep something a secret, who was he to stop her? She could do whatever she wanted. Also, try to cry less, Rias. You lose a significant amount of water and salt when you shed tears. It's detrimental to your health, particularly when you're spending time with someone unfamiliar. It was a random fact that he had learned from Sakura during the war, and he believed Rias should be aware of it more than anyone else. Okay. The road they were walking on could easily be described as desolate, far away from the bustling world and its inhabitants. Other than the majestic green trees, the vibrant little birds, and the rushing stream running alongside the gravel path, there was nothing else in sight. No matter how far their eyes wandered, there was no sign of human life. It felt as if they had been transported to another world, a place entirely unfamiliar. This was particularly confusing since they had not even entered the depths of the Miyagi jungle yet. At first, they had thought it was temporary, expecting to encounter some humans living by the river. Unfortunately, they were proven wrong when they found no one there. Confused and slightly worried, they decided to approach some locals for information, only to learn that the area had been abandoned by its residents several years ago. Faced with uncertainty, they ultimately made the bold choice to continue their journey to Abanazawa with whatever resources they had. Abanazawa. Naruto glanced at his companion, his mind consumed by a thought that had gnawed at him for hours. What makes Abanazawa so special? His mind still struggled to grasp why his companion was so thrilled about visiting that town. From what he had observed, Rias appeared to be an introverted individual who disliked crowded places and the chatter of people. So, when she asked him to visit the town with her, he was mildly surprised. I still don't understand why we're visiting that town, Rias? Finally, after contemplating it for a while, he made the decision to surrender and asked the girl directly. After all, only she held the secret to why she desired to explore that town. Because it is absolutely stunning, and I am sure that you will like it, Naruto. Rias' beautiful red hair moved in the wind as she turned to face her confused companion. A small smile crept onto her lips when she saw the confused look on his face. She found it amusing, but she refrained from expressing her opinion, afraid of being scolded by the boy. Something had become a common occurrence ever since they had left that town. That response was far from adequate, but Naruto chose not to argue, simply for the sake of the smile that was illuminating Rias' face at that moment. It was a rare moment, and he didn't want to spoil it with his foolish arguments. I see, he whispered, making every effort to sound as composed as possible for her. Do you need some water? Concern laced his voice as Naruto gazed at Rias' face, glistening with sweat. Hearing his question, Rias paused her hike and looked at her partner, puzzled by his question. Am I looking tired already? She thought, blinking and running a hand over her face, only to cringe when she felt a considerable amount of sweat there. Embarrassed, she lowered her head and declined his offer. No, she whispered under her breath. Really? Rias heard him say, but this time she could hear the surprise in his voice. You are sweating profusely, Rias. You need to drink something, or you will end up dehydrated. Naruto reached out to his backpack, which she had bought him recently, and pulled out a chilled bottle of water. Here, he tossed the bottle in her direction, hoping she would catch it. Unfortunately, Rias was not paying attention and the bottle crashed loudly onto the ground. Thud! Startled by the resounding thud of the bottle hitting the ground, Rias snapped out of her stupor and swiftly moved to retrieve it, a pang of embarrassment washing over her for being so oblivious to her surroundings. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to you. Naruto dismissed her concerns with a nonchalant wave of his hand, indicating that he was neither irritated nor furious at her. It's okay, Rias. Rias nodded and then resumed her position, cradling the bottle in her right palm. She noticed its chill as she watched the droplets of water trickling down the plastic surface. When did you buy it? She asked him, puzzled. She couldn't recall having visited any department stores in the past 20-something hours. When exactly did her partner buy this bottle that was still as cold as if it were freshly bought? Her bluish-green eyes wandered over to him and narrowed when she saw him looking a little lost in his thoughts. Naruto, she called out to him, her expression turning into a scowl as he continued to ignore her. Is he becoming annoyed by my questions? She thought, a wave of panic washing over her. She feared that her own foolishness might lead to her being left behind. Just as she was about to let the topic go, her partner finally spoke up. I purchased them from that shop, you know, the one near that place where Naruto hesitated, briefly averting his gaze, intensifying her feelings of unease. A place where? She tutored him to continue, seeing that she was not going to drop the subject. A defeated sigh escaped Naruto's lips. Where were you, P? Every rational thought fled her mind as she swiftly realized what he was about to say. I remember now, she gracefully interrupted him, feeling more than content when the boy fell silent. Furthermore, in order to avoid any additional discussion regarding the delicate matter, she purposefully unscrewed the cap of the water bottle and started relishing the liquid as though her very existence relied upon it. Well, it did depend on it in a way, but at that moment, she only used it as a defense to avoid any potential conversation with the boy. Naruto, who watched her from afar, couldn't help but sigh at her antics. Ever since the day he saw her crying, Rias had been more relaxed and cheerful around him. Initially, it wasn't an issue, as she had the right to do whatever she pleased. However, as soon as she began encroaching on his personal space, things began to take a rather unexpected turn. Only 2 days have passed since the accident, and she was already acting as if she were his friend, which she clearly was not. For him, she was just a stranger, someone who would leave his side as soon as they entered Fukuoka, and that's exactly how he wanted it. He didn't want to make new friends at the moment. He had no need for them. That's why her constant smiling and carefree attitude were getting on his nerves. Moreover, the fact that they were often fake only added to his annoyance, as her insincere smiles and feigned enthusiasm reminded him of a specific individual. A young man, dressed in a striking orange jumpsuit, moving across the rooftops, desperately seeking a connection, someone who could truly appreciate his presence and turn his fake smile into a genuine one. She reminded him of himself, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto's moist eyes widened slightly as he witnessed her smile in his direction. However, it was evident that her smile was fake, as always. His heart sank even further as she proceeded to stretch her body, feigning enthusiasm and pretending to acclimate to the harsh surroundings. Yes, he said, still making no effort to stop her, since in the end, everything would be futile. Unaware of the thoughts racing through her partner's mind, Rias finished stretching her body and started walking along the pebble-filled path, stealing a quick glance at Naruto. He had been behaving somewhat differently since yesterday. Is it because of what happened the day before yesterday, she wondered. Despite her doubts, a small part of her couldn't shake the feeling that it might be true. In an effort to reassure herself, she ultimately chose to address the issue. Are you still feeling uneasy about what happened that night, Naruto? If that's the case, then don't worry, I was not crying because of you. It wasn't your fault, Rias whispered, hoping to bring a smile to his face. However, her hopeful expression quickly faded as she noticed traces of irritation on his face. Surprised by his emotional response, she fell silent and humbly looked away. I'm not uncomfortable, Rias. His words struck her heart in an unsettling way this time, as she could no longer sense a feeling of neutrality in them. Now, his words seemed purposely aimed at causing her pain. His words faded into nothingness as he averted his gaze from her, unable to find any meaning in conversing with her at that moment. The path was engulfed in silence, threatening to swallow everything in its wake. Just as it seemed they too would be devoured, Rias turned and cast a gentle smile over her shoulder at him. Am I troubling you? She inquired, receiving an answer through the boy's deliberate avoidance of her gaze. I see her voice trailed off into a barely audible whisper, so faint that even the buzzing of insects around them began to drown it out. Chirp! Naruto blinked as the melodious sound of crickets chirping entered his ears, melting like warm honey inside of him. It was surreal and exhilarating. Squeak! His feet slowed down when the cicadas harmonized their calls into the symphony of nature. Chirp! Blue eyes vanished behind the eyelids as Naruto lost himself in the melody, and his mind wandered back to his abandoned home, a place he had mistakenly left behind, a place he yearned to be more than anywhere else at this moment. He wanted to bask in the brightness of sunlight once more, to inhale the freshness of the air, and above all, to experience the comforting feeling of home again. Squeak! His heart ached in agony and blue eyes glistened with tears when an overwhelming cascade of memories of him wandering around in that village plagued his fitful mind. Chirp! This beautiful song of nature struck him right in the heart, evoking a deep sense of sadness. The last time he had heard this melody was while traveling with Erosenin, and ever since, he had yearned to experience it once more. Squeak! His eyes twitched slightly as the hymn began to sound unfamiliar to his ears. Chirp! He clenched his hand as the eerie sound filled the air. What's happening? He thought, his face twisted in panic. How did this hymn become so unnatural all of a sudden? He looked around, searching for answers, but found none. Squeak! Stop! It was unbearable now. Chirp! Stop! He found himself entranced by that bizarre hymn with nowhere to go. Squeak! Naruto covered his ears and fell to the ground, the sharp pebbles causing him to hit himself. Stop! He shouted, his voice overpowering the tormenting buzz of the insect. Within seconds, the sound vanished as if it had never existed. Naruto! His despair-filled eyes opened slightly and softened as Rias ran towards him, her face filled with panic. When he looked into her eyes, he gasped in amazement as he saw nothing but care and concern in them. Were they intended for him? He couldn't be sure in that instant, but the mere sight of those eyes was sufficient to soothe his troubled soul. They made him feel as though there was someone by his side, even if that person was only using him to get to where she wanted to go. I'm all right. Her eyes locked with his, rendering him speechless in an instant. Are you okay? She inquired, as she crouched down beside him. Now, having regained a satisfactory position, Naruto nodded his head confidently. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine, he assured her, striving to seem completely composed. Rias noticed his hand trembling and scowled. Do you need water? She whispered, pointing to the bottle hanging by her backpack. It was the exact same bottle that he had given her before, the bottle she had foolishly asked him questions about. However, this time, Rias was elated that he had purchased it at some point during their journey. Sure, a smile graced her lips, a truly genuine one this time. Here, she said, unfastening the cap and carefully placing the bottle's opening against his lips. Rias immediately realized what he was indicating and was about to hand over the bottle to him, but to her surprise, before she could even do that, Naruto reached out and grabbed the bottle, chugging the water from it. For the next few seconds, Rias remained still and smiling, allowing the boy to drink as much water as he wanted. She was content to stay in that position if it meant she could help him. As Naruto gulped down the water, his gaze accidentally met her smile, and for a moment, his throat went dry, despite being constantly moistened by the liquid. It's genuine. As a strange emotion started to whirl in his mind, he pondered deeply. With each passing moment, it grew more soothing and delightful. Its infectious nature mirrored that of his own happy smile. Soon, a wave of remorse washed over him as he realized how coldly he had treated her in the past few days. Despite her best efforts to make the trip enjoyable, he had only succeeded in hurting her by disregarding her gestures. Now that he thought about it, Rias was just like those crickets and cicadas. When he first met her, although she seemed a bit strange, she also appeared incredibly intriguing and captivating, much like the enchanting melody of insects. However, as time passed and the days went by, she gradually became increasingly irritating, like that song that became unbearable to hear. At first, he had believed the issue was with the Rias, but upon further investigation, he realized that the problem lay with no one but himself. After enduring those tragic events in his past, he had stopped to celebrate the small joys of life. The things that once brought him immense happiness no longer elicited a smile, or even a faint grin. It was as if he had become lifeless long before his death. But it isn't wrong. Naruto, he gasped as her voice reached his ears, pulling him back to reality. After inhaling a much-needed breath, he looked at her and immediately scowled upon seeing her still smiling at him. What was wrong with this girl? Why are you? He sighed, irritation palpable on his face as she interrupted him for the 1,000th time that day. But his irritation soon turned to surprise as she placed a hand over his mouth and wiped away the last of the water. You spaced out again, Rias whispered, looking a little cautious as she spoke, a sight that only deepened Naruto's sadness. She was hesitant because of him, as she didn't want to further irritate him with her words. And you were looking like a duh. Her hesitation prompted Naruto to speak up. Dead body? He whispered, appearing completely calm as she looked at him in surprise. Why yes. Rias nodded her head. Well, I'll be one very soon, so what difference does that make? He joked, or at least tried to. However, he quickly realized that his attempt had failed miserably when the girl rose from her seat and began walking away, leaving the water bottle in his hand. Rias, he whispered her name, but she either turned around nor responded. It was as if she had become angry out of nowhere. Looks like she doesn't appreciate jokes about death, he thought with a sad frown. He realized he shouldn't have made that foolish joke. Are you just going to keep staring at me all day? Naruto wasted no time. In the blink of an eye, he rose from the ground and swiftly started to pursue her. Rias trudged through the dim and treacherous path of the forest, consumed by misery. She had been traveling along this trail for a whole hour, but her mind was still fixated on Naruto's words spoken just before they left. Truth be told, the past few days she spent with him were some of the best days of her life. Why? Because with him, she didn't need to put on airs or act like a proper noble lady. To him, she was an ordinary girl, and that was all that truly mattered. Unlike others she had encountered, he never once inquired about her background or probed into the depths of her identity. He just allowed her to tag along, despite knowing nothing about her, and with him, she could forget about everything and just be herself. However, her mind simply couldn't stop replaying that one sentence. Well, I'll be one very soon, so what difference does that make? Although Naruto had tried to pass it off as a joke, Rias knew better. Once they reached their final destination, she knew that Naruto's journey would end forever. Over the past few days, she had begun to forget about her difficult circumstances. She would even dare to say that she had started to feel more at ease around him, and even considered him a friend. Despite the unusual circumstances surrounding their initial encounter, he had started to grow on her. The way he treated her without any sense of awe or pity truly put her at ease. It had always been one of her dreams to be treated normally by people. And in just a few short days, this boy beside her had fulfilled all of her desires. But that won't last long. In the end, Rias would still be alone and likely die alone in this world. The only glimmer of light she had found in this world after so long would vanish long before she could be discovered by the fiends of the underworld. She didn't like it at all. She was unwilling to witness the death of the person she considered a friend. Rias was unaware, but that was the genuine reason why she had desired to accompany Naruto. The fact that he had chosen to rob her instead of any other easier target made her feel special in a twisted sort of way. She was aware that she lived in a highly affluent neighborhood, and she knew for certain that many of the houses in the area lacked proper security measures. With just one glance, she could instantly recognize his immense experience in combat, evident from the way he carried himself. From that, she could easily deduce that he was a seasoned thief. No experienced burglar would target an individual accompanied by a guard, especially when there were numerous easier targets with guaranteed rewards. The fact that he stood beside her, even though she was basically a stranger to him, affirmed her belief that she held significance in his eyes. Otherwise, there was no human robber out there who would stay with someone involved with the Yakuza. Robbers were primarily self-interested individuals. This action significantly increased her trust in the man walking beside her. Her goals have now changed. She was no longer willing to wait to be found and taken back to the underworld. She was now determined to make sure that Naruto would not die alone. It was the least she could do for someone who willingly took a stranger like her alongside them, and never abandoned her, even when they were threatened by the Yakuza. With those somber thoughts in her mind, Rias continued her stroll. After a few additional minutes of walking, they ultimately discovered what they had been searching for. A naturally formed and deserted path that could be used to reach their main destination, Abanazawa, a place she was eager to visit due to its stunning natural beauty. Rias, the red-haired girl, turned her head slightly and glared at her partner. Yes? She grumbled, her eyes still fixed on the captivating view of the road ahead. It was a beautiful road, adorned with plants on one side and a river on the other. The river appeared to be shallow and flowed gently, a stark contrast to what they had encountered in the past few days. Do you need water? For the second time on that day, Rias found herself at a loss for words as her partner rummaged through his bag for the water bottle. Am I sweating again? She immediately placed a hand on her forehead and sighed in frustration when she felt the dampness of sweat on her fingers. She struggled to formulate a response to his question but failed miserably. Great, just great. Now he's going to think that I'm one of those spoiled brats who can't even walk a few kilometers without sweating. Seriously, why was she sweating so much? She mentally screamed at herself. Naruto, who was watching her from the sidelines, was poised to throw the water bottle at her, but hesitated when he noticed the signs of stress and annoyance on her lovely face. Are you okay, Rias? Was the first thing that he blurted out, showing his immediate concern for her health. Yes, I'm fine, she grumbled, still irritated by the fact that she couldn't do anything about the sweat. It was infuriating her now. Naruto shook his head, rejecting her false assurances. It was clear to him that she was not fine. Her body was drenched in sweat and seemed on the verge of giving up at any moment. You don't look fine to me, Rias, he insisted. Really? He nodded. Certainly, Rias. You're losing a significant amount of water through sweating, and I'm worried that you might end up fainting during the walk, he explained, unaware of the impact of his words on the girl. Rias was on the verge of arguing back, but she halted her tongue when she realized the weight of his words. Worried about me? She whispered, taken aback by his unexpected concern. He was genuinely worried about her, but why? Why are you worried about me? Her bluish-green eyes sought an explanation from him. The boy closed his mouth and started looking around, searching for something intriguing to divert his attention from her. Naruto? He cursed inwardly when she called out his name again. Why, yes? His eyes turned to her face and flickered with discomfort when he realized how hopefully she was looking at him for an answer. Damn it, He cursed his motor mouth for uttering something so foolish without reason. There was no need for him to say that. His lips quivered in anxiety as she smiled at him slightly. Where are we going anyway? In the end, he didn't have the courage to hurt her again, so he did what anyone in his position would have done. He changed the subject. Just like that, the smile disappeared from her lips. Abanazawa, I see. Wordlessly, they continued their journey to the town of Abanazawa, either willing to shatter the silence that enveloped them following that conversation. It's incredible that places like these have somehow managed to stay hidden from us humans. Rias whispered to herself, taking another jump across the small stream of water. Naruto hummed from behind, carefully watching her every step. Rias smiled as she reached the other side of the stream, and quickly turned around to see where her partner was. You said you were hungry, right? She inquired. Yes, murmured Naruto, as he joined her on the other side. He was pleasantly surprised that she still remembered his words from hours before. Based on this map, there should be a small restaurant nearby. So if you're interested, we can stop there and have our lunch. Sure. Naruto wasted no time in answering and quickly fell into step with her as she confidently walked in a seemingly random direction, with the map flailing wildly in her hands. After a few more minutes of walking and wandering, they stumbled upon exactly what they had been seeking. Nestled between two towering trees, their eyes landed upon a quaint cottage with a wooden sign suspended above it, adorned with the word food. Drawn in by the mouth-watering aroma of freshly baked goods and savory dishes, their feet began to move on their own, and before their mind could even register what was happening, they found themselves in front of the entrance of the shop. Looking at each other one last time, they both gently pushed open the soft flaps of the door and stepped into the shop. Welcome to my cozy food corner, little ones. A warm voice interrupted the calm ambience of the small cottage, catching them off guard as they settled into the vacant seats adjacent to the table. Overcoming their shock, they lifted their heads and saw that the shop's owner was a fairly old man, clad in familiar kitchen attire. What may I offer you today? The man eagerly inquired, exuding the same enthusiasm as before. Miso ramen. Naruto was the first to respond, whispering. His gaze was fixed on the image of ramen on the menu as if it was the most valuable treasure in the world at that very moment. Rias quickly followed him. Miso ramen, she smiled warmly at the elderly man, insensible to the disapproving gaze Naruto was shooting her way. She was well aware of his thoughts, but she paid them no mind since ramen happened to be one of her favorite food as well. The shop owner returned her smile with a warm one of his own. Excellent choice, miso ramen it is. He is an interesting man. Naruto couldn't help but notice the man's radiant smile that seemed to light up the room. Rias wholeheartedly agreed with her partner. The old man appeared quite content for someone of his age. Yes, she murmured, her eyes fixed on the man who was preparing their food with a contagious smile on his face. How can he be so happy? From the looks of it, he seems lonely here, yet he is so happy? To say Rias was taken aback by Naruto's question would be an understatement, as her partner was typically reserved and seldom opened up to her, especially regarding topics of happiness and loneliness. Because she tried to answer his question, but found herself incapable of doing so. She didn't know the old man well enough to respond to her partner's inquiry. Even if she did, she was very unfamiliar with the concept of happiness herself. It was something that had long left her side. Why? Naruto asked, casting a concerned gaze her way. He sighed upon noticing her deep in contemplation. Because I am grateful for every experience life brings my way. Both the teenagers were taken aback as the elderly man unexpectedly intervened in the conversation and offered his response to Naruto's question. Appreciate? Naruto growled at the elderly owner, causing Rias, who sat beside him, to jump in surprise. What did he mean by suggesting he should appreciate everything? How could he possibly find it in himself to appreciate the way fate had treated him? This is nonsense. This man is clueless, he thought before calming down, realizing that his anger would lead to nothing. The man didn't even flinch at Naruto's small outburst. Yes, he said, his weary eyes showing the utmost affection they could muster towards Naruto. You may not see it yet, boy, but I'm sure you'll remember my words in the future when everything falls into place for you. Naruto scoffed once more at the man's words, failing to see any semblance of logic. The future, he muttered, unaware of Rias' intense gaze fixed upon him, her concern palpable. There's no future for me, old man. Huh! The man stopped whatever he was doing. I said I have no future here, old man. This world is not for me, and it won't be long before I'll disappear from here forever. A suffocating silence enveloped the cottage, holding it tightly in its powerful grip. Thud. Naruto nearly fell from his chair when Rias abruptly threw her chopsticks to the ground and stormed out of the cabin. Rias! He called out, trying to stop her, but she ignored him and continued to walk away. The hell is wrong with her? He thought to himself as he started picking up their bags. I believe you may have upset her, boy. Naruto momentarily stopped what he was doing and turned his gaze towards the elderly man. I know, I'm not blind, old man, he murmured, adjusting the bags on his shoulders. He let out a sigh of relief as the weight of the luggage finally eased onto his shoulders. Leaving his utensils behind, the elderly shop owner walked over to his counters and gazed warmly at the young boy. However, this time, his smile carried a subtle hint of sorrow. She was in tears, dear, he revealed, causing the boy to gasp in shock. "See crying?" "Yes," the man answered. "Is she your girlfriend?" Naruto hesitated for a moment, but then decisively shook his head to dismiss the notion. He couldn't fathom why he had hesitated in the first place. Perhaps it was because of Rias' tears, he pondered. Shaking his head once more, he tried to clear his mind. A girl like Rias would never shed tears for someone like him. "Maybe, damn it," he muttered under his breath, pushing his chair back and swiftly walking towards the door, determined to catch up with Rias. Outside the shop. "Rias? Rias?" Naruto called out desperately, his eyes scanning the establishment for any sign of his odd companion. "Where is she?" Even with his keen senses, he couldn't spot her anywhere, which was rather surprising. It shouldn't have been so difficult to find someone in such a small clearing. But then again, without his friend Kurama, his senses had become somewhat diminished. Kurama was the one who used to look after him, but the war also separated them. But it's not about Kurama anymore. Right now, I should focus on Rias. Naruto found himself engulfed in a sea of worry, unaware that he was beginning to experience emotions other than indifference and sorrow for the first time since arriving in this world. Damn it! Realizing she was alone in the jungle and that he wouldn't be able to find her in his current state, Naruto tapped into his chakra and closed his eyes. Soon, everything brightened and became vivid as a beautiful shade of orange enveloped his eyes, giving them a surreal appearance. "There," he exclaimed in his mind, his eyes catching the distinctive energy of Rias. Now that he knew her location, Naruto wasted no time and sprinted towards the back of the shop where she was sitting alone. "Rias!" he called out as he reached his destination. "Rias!" His eyes softened a little as they saw her sitting silently on a fallen log, her delicate features veiled by the cascade of her beautiful hair. After gazing at her for a few moments longer, he noticed her body trembling. In an instant, he realized that she had been in that state for quite some time. He was at a loss for words, racked with guilt over knowing he was the source of her distress. With a weary expression, he sat down beside her. "Rias. Naruto didn't get to finish his apology as he was cut short by Rias. "Can you please stop talking about your death? I really don't like it." As soon as she finished her words, Naruto felt irritation rise within him again, only this time directed at himself. If only he had been more considerate of her feelings and refrained from making those foolish jokes, perhaps he would have never found himself entangled in this predicament. "I apologize for the jokes, Rias. I will avoid making such jokes in the future," he said, adding his own thoughts on the situation. "Also, you should stop from taking my words seriously, Rias. I am a stranger to you, someone you will never encounter again after this small trip." As Naruto finished expressing his thoughts, Rias sat up straight, brushed her hair aside, and gazed directly into his eyes. "I cannot," she replied, her answer brief and simple, but unsatisfying to Naruto. "Why?" "Because you are not the only one who wants to escape the pain, Naruto. I want to find peace too, but I just haven't been able to because I'm too frightened to take that final step. And I thought I'd remain like that forever, but then I met you. You wanted to die just like me and I thought by tagging along with you, I might be able to find the strength to do it too." Silence enveloped the clearing as Rias completed her explanation for wanting to follow Naruto. Her eyes widened as she realized her spontaneous words, and her expression immediately turned despondent as she withdrew into herself. Naruto, sitting beside her, was similarly speechless at the revelation. She has the same goal as I do? From the moment they met on that mountain, he had sensed she was almost as broken as he was. But to desire death to the same extent? That was something he had not anticipated. Confused and stunned, he was about to ask her why. However, Rias sensed his intention and stopped him by raising her hand in a plea. "Just please don't ask. I don't want to talk about it." Naruto complied with her plea and remained silent. Realizing that Rias was equally tormented by thoughts of suicide, memories of their initial encounter flooded his mind, leading him to make unsettling yet significant realizations. Her husband is not a kind person. In his previous life, he had witnessed countless instances where people found themselves in nearly identical circumstances as hers. Her wedding ring and her expensive clothes probably served as mere display items. It's unlikely that her husband genuinely cared about her well-being, or else she wouldn't be sitting beside him at this moment. The more he thought about it, the more he started to feel sorry for her, especially for the cold treatment he had given her today. Before his thoughts could take a darker turn, Rias' peaceful voice interrupted him. "Can you please try to act normal until our trip is over?" Rias pleaded as tears filled her eyes while she looked into Naruto's gaze. "Please, Naruto, it's my final wish to be happy at least before I..." Rias didn't get to finish her sentence as Naruto placed a firm hand on her shoulder and began to speak in a soothing tone, something that she wasn't able to hear because she was too lost in his eyes at that moment. They appeared much more beautiful than before, especially with the orange streaks surrounding them. "I'm sorry, could you please repeat that?" she mumbled, unable to tear her eyes away from those mesmerizing orbs. Naruto blinked at her, uncertain. "Did you not hear what I just said?" he inquired, feeling his cheeks flush as she shook her head in response. I meant to say," he trailed off, his gaze starting to avert from her. "Why, you said?" Aware of the necessity to speak to her, he pushed past his embarrassment and turned to face her. I said. He paused briefly to catch his breath. I will do my best to behave normally from now on. Rias felt her sadness dissipating as she heard Naruto's answer, but that loss of sadness was soon replaced by confusion when she saw Naruto squat down in front of her, his back towards her, and his arms held tightly behind him as though concealing something. What are you doing?" Rias asked, undoubtedly surprised by the sudden change in his personality. Naruto sulked even more in embarrassment as he responded, "Can't you tell? I'm obviously offering you a piggyback ride," he mumbled. Rias felt her face flush as she stammered out denials. "This is so unexpected." One moment, they were all feeling down, and the next, he was offering her a piggyback ride. Almost as if he could sense her indecision, Naruto began speaking once more. "Rias, didn't you want your last moments to be happy? Why not let this be the first? Plus, you seem exhausted, and I don't want you to continue walking in that condition." Rias' face turned even redder as she heard what Naruto had said. She was undeniably exhausted and sweating profusely. The thought of someone carrying her around did sound appealing, and it could become a precious memory. Unnoticed by Naruto, she formed a smile on her face as she climbed onto his back. "All right," Naruto whispered as he began to walk away from the cottage, completely oblivious to the fact that they had forgotten to have lunch. The wildlife along the path was absolutely enchanting. Small streams of crystal clear water, lush green trees, and small bushes swaying gently in the breeze, along with a wide array of exotic animals, only added to the beauty of the trail. Rias, an ardent admirer of vibrant settings, could barely contain her excitement as she delighted in the breathtaking beauty of the forest that surrounded them. As her partner leaped from one stone to another, her whole body trembled, and her eyes occasionally flickered to her side to relish the serene ambience that the breathtaking forest was providing her. "It's so beautiful!" she exclaimed in awe, tightening her grip around her partner's neck. "I know." Her eyes lit up as she smiled at her partner, who had been carrying her on his back for hours. "Feeling tired?" she asked jokingly, not really expecting a response to her playful question. "No." His unexpected answer surprised her, and even more so when he adjusted his hands beneath her thighs and began to walk faster. "I'm completely fine," he added in a soft voice, his words as sweet as honey. Rias hummed in response, her eyes fixed unwaveringly on his face. Beads of sweat began to form there, causing a flicker of concern to stir within her. He had been walking tirelessly, carrying her on his back, for hours on end. Even a stamina freak would get tired after that. "Do you need water?" she asked him. Naruto abruptly stopped and looked over his shoulder. "Are you trying to make fun of me?" His question elicited a gasp from Rias. "Of course not. Why would you think that?" His blue eyes observed her for a moment before returning to the trail ahead. I thought. He paused, a tinge of red coloring his cheeks, one that didn't go unnoticed by Rias. Soon, everything began to click in her mind. She couldn't stop a soft chuckle from escaping her mouth. Naruto gave her a dismissive look. "What's so funny about this?" he grumbled, his lips almost forming an irresistibly adorable pout. "What?" Her chuckles got even louder. "Stop." In response, Rias untangled her right hand from around his neck and placed it gently on his forehead. "You're sweating, Naruto. I'm worried that you might end up dehydrated." Expressing fake concern, she whispered to the boy, vividly recalling how he had mocked her lack of stamina the day before. Naruto sighed as he finally understood her intention. "Fine. If you want me to rest, then sure, I'll take a break." Rias would have smiled at him more if he hadn't surprised her with his next move. She let out a gasp of surprise when he dropped her to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Opening her eyes slightly, she immediately fixed a glare on the boy. "Ouch, that hurts, you know," she groaned, her voice tinged with annoyance and anger. "What?" Naruto asked, appearing utterly surprised. "I believe you told me to take a break, and that is precisely what I am doing, Rias." Rias was sure that she caught a glimpse of a playful smile playing on his lips. It exuded both pride and humor, a combination that brought forth a mix of joy and frustration within her. "Is that so?" she retorted sharply. Eyes twitching wildly, the red-haired girl scoffed at the boy. "I never told you to drop me like that," she said. Her complaint elicited a small smile from the boy, and she couldn't help but admire its elegant charm, a perfect blend of charisma and cuteness. Her reverie abruptly halted as she sensed the presence of someone beside her. Startled, she turned her gaze to the right and was surprised to find Naruto sitting there, his eyes completely fixated on her, as if she were the most fascinating being in existence. Her words were hushed by the boy as he gently lifted his hand, placing it beneath her chin. His voice sent shivers up her spine, something he must not have noticed, or he would have stopped right there. After all, he wasn't the type of person to intrude on someone's private space for no reason. Hell, he had hardly shown any interest in her until an hour or two ago when she had told him that she also liked ramen. "You know what?" Her gaze shifted away from his, her voice squeaking in uncertainty. "What?" she questioned, her mind searching for answers. Was he going to make some inappropriate request now? After all, it was their final journey, and people often act foolishly when faced with imminent death. Naruto observed her intently, his gaze unwavering, before gracefully standing up once again. He left behind a bewildered Rias, now unable to string together coherent words, as she tried to make sense of how he seemed to be intentionally provoking her. Please, Rias, stand up. No. The boy glanced in her direction and sighed when he saw her lying carelessly on the ground. Very well, he murmured with a nonchalant shrug of his shoulders. Wait. In an instant, Rias appeared by his side, staring at him with her gaze full of hope. What? You can't leave me alone, she argued. And why can't I do that? She stared at him for a few seconds before looking down at the ground. I don't know, she whispered miserably, a fact that did not escape Naruto's notice. Rias, startled, her bluish-green eyes perked up at the mention of her name, widening in surprise as they caught sight of Naruto crouching just a few meters away. What on earth are you up to? Despite knowing exactly what he was doing, she couldn't help but inquire, wanting to hear his answer directly from him. In response, Naruto glanced over his shoulder and blinked, a simple gesture that brought another smile to her face. I'm offering you a piggyback ride once more, he murmured in his own unique way, his tone neither overly joyous nor too somber. Why? I can walk now. A mysterious emotion unfolded on Naruto's face, an emotion that Rias couldn't decipher no matter how much she tried. It was absolutely inscrutable. Because I walk faster, he finally replied, offering her what could be considered a satisfactory response. Hey! I can walk at a quick pace. I won't allow you to carry me like a sack ever again, she retorted. I know. Then why are you still sitting like that? Get up, we have a long journey ahead before we reach our destination. Naruto stood his ground, maintaining his crouched position. I won't budge until you accept my offer, he whispered, his tone conveying an unexpected level of determination for such a trivial argument. Rias was truly surprised now. Why are you so insistent on giving me a ride? I can walk by myself, Naruto, she said. She wasn't joking. Her legs were completely fine now, and she was confident she could cover long distances without getting exhausted. I enjoy it when you rest your head on my shoulders and fall asleep. It feels quite pleasant for some reason. Even though he tried his best, Naruto was certain he couldn't have found a more formal way to express his dilemma to his companion. It was strange, he knew, but there was nothing he could do about it. Her soft snoring, sleep-talking, and the warmth she exuded made him inexplicably happy. It was precisely for this reason that he had been carrying her on his back for so long. There was no other justification for acting so foolishly with a married woman. Hearing no response from her, Naruto slowly looked over his right shoulder, anxious about the expression that might reveal itself on Ria's face. From the very beginning of their trip, he had made sure not to cross any lines with her, but now he was certain that he had probably done just that. The anxiety on his face increased visibly as Rias began to stride towards him. Naruto. For a moment, he was frozen as she came to a stop in front of him and locked eyes with him. Let's go. A sense of serenity enveloped the atmosphere as she delicately embraced him, resting her chin on his shoulder. Rias hushed him with a soft nudge on his shoulder. Don't utter a word. Just start walking. A faint smile graced his parched lips. Also, I enjoy resting my head on your shoulders too. So don't feel weird about it. Of course, that was a lie. Even though the rides on his back were somewhat entertaining, they were not something she treasured deeply. However, at that moment, Rias simply wanted to see him smile. If being carried around like this was what it took to see his smile, then she was ready to be carried through the entire trip. Stop hogging all my ramen! Rias whined, slapping Naruto's chopsticks away and scooping up the whole bowl of ramen for herself. What? Naruto blinked at her, attempting to appear as innocent as possible. Rias immediately understood what he was trying to do. No, Naruto. Don't try to act innocent now, she said, narrowing her eyes and smirking at him. Innocent? The boy tilted his head. Why should I pretend to be innocent? I haven't done anything wrong. He defended himself. Don't lie. Her shout startled everyone around them. I saw you taking pork and noodles from my bowl a couple of times. You can't fool me, Naruto. She huffed, hands now resting beneath her chest. Did he really think she was a fool? She was much smarter than she seemed on the outside. Naruto stared at her intently before shifting his attention to the bewildered customers. Forgive me, he swiftly and sincerely apologized to them, as you should be. Now eat. I was not talking to you, Rias. A crimson hue flooded her cheeks as she observed her surroundings and grasped the situation. The intense stares from the customers only heightened her embarrassment. Ahem, I understand, she murmured, and proceeded to savor every mouthful of her delectable bowl of ramen. A smile spread across Naruto's lips as he gazed at her flushed face. It looked adorable, he thought. How could anyone dislike her? He couldn't comprehend it. With her warm and joyful personality, Rias was undeniably one of the most fascinating girls he had ever encountered in his life. Her stunning face only added to her appeal. The idea of someone hating her just didn't sit well with him. I want to die too. Just like that, the smile disappeared from his face. Rias wanted to die as well, he thought to himself. When she first told him about her plan, Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing for a good amount of time. A girl so beautiful and happy should not be having such thoughts. At least that's what he thought at that moment. But as their trip went on, he came to realize that she was not so different from him. Just like him, Rias had lost something very important to her. How did he know? Well, Rias was an ardent sleeper who shared her secrets during her naps. Whenever she would rest her head on his shoulders, he would catch faint murmurs of unfamiliar names escaping her lips. Akino, the most common name he had heard from her mouth, and the way she whispered it, Naruto could easily determine that it belonged to someone dear to her. A part of him wanted to confront Rias with these names, but the rational part of his mind had always prevented him from doing so. There was no reason for him to do that. Those names were Rias' secrets, and if she wanted to keep them hidden from him, then so be it. He would always respect her decision. Naruto. His eyes sparkled with surprise as her gentle voice reached his ears. He turned to look at her, catching her attempt to avert her gaze for some unknown reason. Rias tried to avoid his gaze for a while longer, but eventually gave up. She let out a tired sigh and pushed a large, delicious piece of pork into his mouth. Are you satisfied now? She asked, feeling embarrassed by the attention their small interaction was receiving from nearby customers, who were now smiling at them. Naruto gasped. What? He exclaimed with a mouthful of pork and fish broth. I noticed your lost expression and thought you were upset because I didn't share my pork with you. She whispered, looking extremely embarrassed about her actions. Oh, everything finally fell into place in his mind. Rias nodded, keeping her head lowered in embarrassment. Yes. Naruto let out a small laugh. You are so odd, Rias, he said, causing the girl's face to turn even redder. Suddenly, he picked up a slice of tomato from his bowl and leaned across the table, offering the glistening tomato to her. You like tomatoes, right? He asked, playfully twirling a piece of tomato in front of her lips. Rias gazed at the broth-covered tomato for a moment, then pounced on it like a predator. That was she paused with broth dribbling around her rosy lips. Delicious! She concluded ecstatically, while Naruto continued to stare at her face, relishing the smile on her lips. Our ramen is always delicious, Rias-san. Would you like some more? A cheerful voice asked. Rias abruptly sat up and noticed that the person speaking was none other than the middle-aged owner of the restaurant. He was standing on the opposite side of the counter, casting a gaze filled with nothing but tenderness and concern. It was a look that strongly resembled that of her brother, radiating warmth and care. Overwhelmed by emotions, she cast her gaze downward to conceal her timid face. There's no reason we can't have more to eat, she said impassively, trying her best to conceal the sorrow in her voice. Naruto noticed the change in her voice and said, Bring one for me as well. I can't let her eat alone, or she'll end up causing some trouble. He ordered the owner, who, for some reason, was still gazing at Rias, making him a little skeptical. Upon hearing his words, Rias shot him a fake glare and scoffed. Naruto, how many times do I have to tell you? I don't mess anything up. Her complaint reverberated through the silent restaurant, and she winced at the insincerity of her own words. Naruto was taken aback by her sudden outburst and slumped as he looked around the restaurant. I can clearly see that. His eyes emitted nothing but disappointment. And in the future, please try to be more civil around others, he added in a hushed tone, ensuring that the other people nearby wouldn't overhear him. In reply, Rias smiled smugly at him. Who's talking now? A man who attempted to rob me right after we met, she taunted, adding insult to injury as she playfully stuck her tongue out at him. Her smile grew wider as she took in the sight of the embarrassed expression on his face. She couldn't contain her amusement and burst into laughter, unable to resist mocking him. Oh, how the tables have turned, she taunted playfully. However, her fun quickly turned into shock as she noticed his right hand slowly approaching her face. Speculating that he was about to hit her for making fun of him, Rias tried to dodge the blow, but he was faster. Realizing that there was no escape, she braced herself for the inevitable strike. Rias waited and waited, her fear growing with each passing moment. And then, to her utter surprise and delight, Naruto's hand didn't make an impact with her face. Instead, it gently caressed her lips, stirring something inside her heart. There was a noodle on your face. Rias' mind went numb for a second. Oh, she murmured silently, chastising herself for even entertaining the thought that he would hit her. So do you want to go to that dull onsen first? Or do you want to join me in exploring those fascinating mountains? Naruto inquired, leaving her with little choice but to go along with his desire. Knowing very well that he wouldn't visit the onsen first anyway, Rias opted for the second choice. I would love to see those magnificent mountains with you, she replied. Naruto nodded, clearly pleased with her answer. Great. Then finish your ramen quickly. I want to go to the top of the mountain with you. People on the street were saying the view from there is breathtaking, he said, his voice unable to conceal his enthusiasm. Are you both in a relationship? Rias and Naruto paused and glanced at each other as soon as they heard the owner's question. Looking at the man, an embarrassed Rias was the first to answer. And well, at least she thought she was, but Naruto beat her to it. Yes. I have promised to stay by her side till the very end. A deafening silence filled the air of the store. Top of the mountain. It was dark outside. The radiant sun was hidden behind thick layers of countless clouds that were currently showering the town with their refreshing rain. All the beautiful streets of the town lay deserted, submerged under a thin sheet of water, with only the sound of it rippling against the cold, hard surfaces of stone and dirt. The entire city appeared devoid of life, yet possessed a strange and enchanting beauty. It was as though an unseen force had whisked away all living entities, leaving behind a haunting emptiness. The only sounds and sights that filled the air were the relentless echoes and cascades of the frigid water. The mountains that encircled the stunning town were shrouded in a cloak of fog and vibrant greenery. Gentle gusts of cool breeze swept through the dense mountain jungle, causing the leaves to dance in perfect harmony with nature's soothing melody. Everything was serene and stunning. In the distant expanse of those stunning mountains, Rias and Naruto were basking in the downpour. Naruto, who had been tirelessly wandering around the sprawling town for a while, was finally finding some enjoyment. He wasn't sure if it was the enchanting surroundings or the presence of the girl by his side, but he was undeniably relishing the moment. Speaking of the girl, Rias was also captivated by the whole scene. In her entire life, she had never witnessed such an amazing rain. Everything about it was incredible: the lush greenery covered in mist around them, the gently falling water in the ravine below, and the sweet humming of the insects. "It's truly beautiful," she whispered, her eyes tracing the cascading droplets of water descending from the velvety night sky. Naruto nodded in agreement. "It truly is. I have never seen anything so beautiful," he exclaimed as he positioned himself on the edge of the ravine to get a better view of the river. "I never knew rain could be so fascinating," he said with a small smile as a drop of cold water caressed his cheek and fell to the ground. "Rias, why are you standing there? Come here. You wanted to see the river, right?" he called out when he saw her standing alone in the rain. Flustered by his words, Rias quickly followed her companion's lead and positioned herself beside him, gazing at the river below with a sad smile on her face. The rainfall was stirring up bittersweet memories from the depths of her broken heart. Memories of her and Akino, relishing the rain in Ko, dancing and strolling through the town without a care in the world. They were both so innocent back then, completely unaware and unconcerned about what the future held. Back in those days, the only thing that truly mattered to them was the number of water droplets gracefully gliding down their faces, and which one of them had better dancing abilities under the pouring rain. Akino adored the heavy rains, and Rias was certain that her friend would do anything to be there with her. She would play with her, dance with her, and, most importantly, laugh with her. Akino. Tears streamed down her damp cheeks as she reminisced about the beautiful memories of her best friend, the one who never left her side, even when she tried to push her away. "Rias, are you crying?" Naruto asked, tilting his head in confusion. Caught off guard, Rias quickly averted her gaze from her companion, attempting to conceal her tear-stained face. How did he know I was crying, she wondered, brushing away the glistening droplets from her cheeks, a futile effort as the rain persisted in drenching her once more. "Nothing. I was just thinking," she stuttered and cringed at her own behavior when Naruto interrupted her. "It's okay if you don't want to share it with me. We all have things we prefer to keep to ourselves. I won't push you to disclose anything you're not comfortable with," he assured her, looking utterly serious about the matter. Rias responded to Naruto with a fragile smile and whispered, "Thank you." Normally, a smile from her wouldn't have any effect on Naruto, but at that moment, something stirred deep within his soul. Her red lips, partially hidden in that translucent mist and pelting rain, held a fascinating charm, and he couldn't resist the urge to speak. "Your smile looks beautiful in the rain, you know." A whisper escaped his lips, and without any warning, he leaned over and gently brushed the wet strands of red hair away from her face. A thunderous roar echoed through the clouds, illuminating the sky and making her blushing face even more prominent to his deserted eyes. What?" Rias gasped in surprise, her heart racing, as Naruto's cold fingers gently gripped her face, pulling it upwards with a slight tug. "See, now you are looking happy, Rias," Naruto whispered as he gazed at her scarlet face, trying to soak in its beauty as much as he could at that moment. It was the most beautiful sight he had seen in a long time. "A smile suits your face." His eyes twinkled with an unknown emotion. "So try to smile as often as you can." At that moment, all thoughts fled from Rias' mind. "Okay," she managed to squeak, tilting her head slightly so that she could rest it against his palm. The touch felt comforting. They stayed like that for what felt like an eternity before Naruto decided to break the silence. Do you want to visit the onsen now?" "And no. Then, we can visit the onsen tomorrow. But for now, I just want to stay here with you and enjoy this peaceful rain." Lost in his thoughts, Naruto failed to notice the delighted look in her eyes. Turning towards her, he offered a gentle nod. Cough, cough." The soft coughing resonated through the dim and gloomy cabin where Uzumaki Naruto resided. The sound shattered the stillness that had settled over the room during the past few weeks. The room was far from remarkable, unlike what one might expect from the legendary savior of the world. It was situated a distance away from the desolate battlefield, trapped within walls of rough and cracked wood. The room was occupied by the two most significant individuals in the world, Uzumaki Naruto and his dear friend, Uchiha Sasuke. From the expressions on their faces, either of the two seemed pleased with the unfolding events. It was as if something was troubling them, a matter they couldn't even resolve themselves. "Naruto," Sasuke said, breaking the oppressive silence once more. Concern and anxiety filled his voice as he gently placed a reassuring hand on Naruto's shoulder. In response, Naruto flashed a weak smile at him. "I'm fine, Sasuke. It's just a minor—" "No, you're wrong!" The Uchiha boy swiftly interrupted the blonde, preventing yet another foolish excuse from being offered. Naruto was dying. He could see it. It was clear to see, especially with his piercing gaze that left no secrets uncovered. The crimson liquid that trickled down his friend's hand only emphasized his assumption further. Red. Sasuke's eyes blazed with anger as he stared at the vile liquid that had taken countless lives in the past, including those of his brother and their teammates. The memories of their deaths were still vivid in his mind. He had not forgotten them, and even if he tried, he couldn't. They were everlasting, poised to haunt him, forever etched in his memory. And the inevitable death of his friend intensified the anguish inside him. The red liquid that trickled down Naruto's fingers was wicked, more so than him or any other being. It had already taken a piece of his heart, and now it sought to take the rest. I'm fine, Sasuke. Don't worry about me. Lies. Naruto's tone of voice betrayed his intentions, and Sasuke could easily see through his friend's feeble attempt at deception. Naruto's lack of skill as a liar was clear to Sasuke, who saw right through the charade. He wasn't fine. Sasuke would know if he were healthy. His one and only friend was dying, and it infuriated him that he couldn't take any action because of the ongoing war. But that doesn't mean Sasuke never tried to do something about it. He, along with his late friend Sakura, traveled from camp to camp, tirelessly seeking a cure for his friend's illness. Unfortunately, the disease that had plagued Naruto was incurable. It was the same illness that had taken his brother's life, and even Tsunade, with all her skills, could not find a cure. This only added to his frustration. Naruto was being consumed from within, and he was powerless to do anything but witness his decay. Despite possessing the Eye of God, he was still unable to intervene for his most precious friend. Why? Naruto adamantly refused all offers of unconventional revival methods. I would rather die than be brought back through some ridiculous eye power of yours, idiot. I want to see my parents, you know? I don't want to stay in this hell. Hell. Sasuke's face contorted in a frown as he recalled the incident involving a particular individual that had caused Naruto's perspective of their world to shift. Hinata. It all happened because of that girl and her last words to his friend before her tragic death. She completely transformed Naruto's perspective, leaving Sasuke unable to resent her for it. What she did was nothing but what any person would do to shield their beloved ones, particularly when that loved one represented the last flicker of hope for their entire world. Sacrifice. Hinata sacrificed herself so that Naruto could live on and learn how to love and be loved, a concept that was foreign to both of them. While he had his team Taka, who at least tried to help him understand the strange feeling, his friend, on the other hand, had no one at all. Not a single soul. Sasuke? Sasuke's gaze flickered towards his friend and was dazzled by the light emanating from Naruto's smile. It was as bright and contagious as ever. How are you still smiling, idiot? He couldn't help but ask. Even with death looming over him, Naruto showed no fear. The shock and confusion on his face increased 1,000-fold when the blonde lightly flicked him on the forehead with his finger. I may be an idiot, Sasuke, but I'm also Uzumaki Naruto, the one who will protect this world and your sorry ass from that Madara. Naruto's smile and words eased Sasuke's worries slightly. They had an undeniable effect on people, and he was no exception. And to answer your question, well, I can smile as much as I want. We can't escape death. It's inevitable. It will catch up with us sooner or later, you know. But that doesn't mean we should fear it. Instead, we should be ready for it when it comes for us. Sasuke blinked, his mismatched eyes swirling with confusion. How? He asked, oblivious to the thunderstorm brewing outside their cabin. By living rather than existing, stupid. Ero Sennin always used to say that we can exist for centuries without truly experiencing life. However, to live, we must find a meaningful cause for our existence. Mine was saving the world, which I will fulfill soon, while yours is to protect what I will achieve and find true happiness. Naruto reluctantly removed his hand from Sasuke's forehead, sensing a turbulent storm of emotions swirling within him. Although subtle, he discerned a potent mix of anger, confusion, sadness, and even a faint glimmer of affection conveyed through his eyes and expression. Sasuke gazed at him for a moment before speaking again. But you are all I have left now. Without you, my life will become desolate once again. His voice was barely a whisper at this point, and his face was turned toward the ground, too ashamed to look anywhere else. Lies, whispered Naruto. I'm not going anywhere. I will always remain beside you, even when I become a ghost. I'm sure Kakashi-sensei and Sakura-chan are doing the same too. Sharp and piercing like icy needles, his friend's words mercilessly sliced through Sasuke's heart. Naruto, he attempted to respond, but his voice failed him. What could he possibly say? He couldn't even meet Naruto's gaze, so deep was the shame he carried within. Noticing Sasuke's reluctance to speak, Naruto resolved to ask him the very question that compelled him to seek out his friend. Sasuke, could you do me a favor? Naruto inquired, but before he could elaborate, Sasuke cut him off abruptly. What is it? Naruto smiled, his attention immediately drawn to the anxious and hopeful tone in his friend's voice. Could you please place my grave next to Sensei and Sakura's? His question caught his friend off guard, but Naruto was determined. Hey, don't look at me like that. I don't want to wander as a ghost alone, you know. His voice softened. It would suck to end up lonely even after death. The Rinnegan blazed in Sasuke's left eye. You're not going to die, Naruto. I won't let it happen. I don't have anything to live for at this moment. Soon, the world will be safe and I won't be needed anymore. With the way this is spreading, I might as well be a walking dead. Naruto, shut your damn mouth for once, idiot. Naruto smirked and replied, of course, but only if you agree to fulfill my wish. Sasuke could have come up with several justifications at that moment to avoid Naruto's foolish request, but he chose not to when he witnessed a glimmer of something he hadn't seen in his friend's eyes for a while. Happiness. Naruto was truly happy at that moment, and no matter how hard he tried, Sasuke couldn't resist when Naruto was that happy about something. Uchiha Sasuke, you there? A wave of sorrow washed over Sasuke as he realized the unbearable torment his friend had endured due to the cruel actions of their world's inhabitants. Ever since his sad and lonely childhood, there hasn't been a single day when Naruto hasn't experienced some form of pain inflicted upon him by others. Even now, as he tried to save these stupid individuals at the expense of his own happiness and the lives of his friend was enduring hardship in order to keep them safe. In a moment filled with pure spite, Sasuke wished to take away Naruto's pain and inflict it upon those unworthy fools. He was certain that if he were in Naruto's shoes, he would have destroyed the entire world twice by now. If he couldn't have his happiness after enduring so much suffering, then others shouldn't have it either. And yet there he was, his foolish and naive friend, smiling just as he did in the past. Fine, but I still won't let you die even if it costs me my life. Ah, since when did you become so kind, Sasuke? Okay, I won't joke anymore since I can see that you are being serious. Sasuke's lips trembled when he saw Naruto struggle to suppress another bout of those violent coughs. Oh, you will save me, right? You can't just back off now. A small smile tugged at the corners of Sasuke's dry lips. Of course I will. Ha! A pair of vivid cobalt blue eyes burst open, desperately struggling to rid themselves of the painful memory that had haunted them just moments before. It was a haunting and soul-crushing reminder, resurfacing in Naruto's mind, of the immense burden he had placed upon his dear friend. Sasuke Naruto couldn't help but reminisce about the bittersweet moments he had shared with him during the war. Despite their viciousness, he valued those times far more than his current condition. The relentless battle to adapt and conceal himself in this unfamiliar world was overwhelming. He wanted to die, to transcend into a realm where he could be reunited with his beloved ones, be it heaven or hell, assuming these realms truly exist. Tap. A sad smile graced his lips as a lone tear gently traced its path down his cheek, leaving a lasting mark on his new nightclothes, something that Rias had bought for him today. Rias, for the 1000th time ever since he had started this strange journey, Uzumaki Naruto found himself searching for that red-haired beauty. Scouring the darkness of the room for what felt like an eternity, he finally laid eyes on her. There she is, he whispered, a triumphant smile creeping across his face. Sleeping soundly in the warm embrace of fluffy blankets on the bed beside his own, his companion was experiencing a peaceful and comfortable sleep, something he longed for as well. Unfortunately, it had become a luxury that he could no longer afford. Sasuke and Sakura haunted his dreams, leaving behind nothing but tragic memories and a constant reminder of their unfortunate deaths. Every time he tried to sleep, their smiling faces would torment his dreams, keeping him from restful slumber. It had been like that ever since the tragic war. After months of struggling, Naruto finally gave up and chose to stay awake at night. Getting no sleep at all was far better than suffering through those horrible dreams. Initially exhausting, he soon adapted to this lifestyle, and before he knew it, he was leading a life strikingly similar to that of his old mentor, Jiraiya. Naruto smiled to himself as the comforting image of his beloved mentor, Jiraiya, emerged in his mind, alleviating his anguish. You were right, Erosen, a place truly becomes a home when there is someone there to greet you warmly, he murmured softly, his words just barely escaping his lips. But he didn't mind because it meant he wouldn't disturb Ria's sleep. No matter how many bowls of ramen I eat during this journey, none will bring peace to my heart unless they are prepared by the hands of someone whom I deeply admire, someone whom I cherish. Eyes wet, Naruto turned towards the fairly bright corner of the room where windows were located and saw that the moon was casting a gentle glow unlike the past few nights. I need to breathe in some fresh air. This strong scent of perfume is clouding my mind. With that in mind, Naruto rose from his bed and made his way to the windows, being careful not to disturb his companion. Beautiful was the first word that escaped his lips as he gazed outside the window. Darkness enveloped everything, but the moon's light compensated for it. Naruto saw it like a beautiful dance of darkness and light, a spectacular sight he could only watch from afar. His once dull eyes, devoid of emotion since the tragic loss of his friends, basked once more in the light. For a fleeting moment, he felt truly alive. He yearned to delve into the night, to savor it, to breathe it in, and most importantly, to become a part of it. The desire to belong somewhere fueled these thoughts, but his fragile heart recognized the impossibility of it now. Like the darkness enveloping the night, his presence also seemed fleeting, destined to disappear from the world sooner or later. And once gone, there would be no trace of him remaining, not even a tiny keepsake. I must complete this journey, he whispered to himself, as a deep sense of dread began to consume him once more. So she's actually staying at that inn? Wymond, the loyal assassin servant of Xiaticus Gremry, murmured, charmed by the sight of the stunning inn just a few hundred meters away. It's hard to believe that Lady Rias had the audacity to escape like that, and with a human boy, no less. Determined, he started moving towards the establishment, with each step accompanied by a surge of magic, illuminating the formerly dim surroundings. If I recall correctly, I caught a glimpse of him arriving here. Squinting his eyes, he tried to recollect the route the boy took when he spotted him walking by not too long ago. Judging by his appearance, he seemed like an ordinary individual. So why did he choose to accompany Lady Rias? It was a question that had been circulating among the Gremry household for the past few days, but if you were to inquire with Wymond, the answer wasn't that difficult to fathom from the viewpoint of a young adolescent. The boy must have been seeking companionship, and when Lady Rias offered it, he accepted without hesitation. A small smile graced his lips as he continued, I have to give him credit for that. It's not every day that you encounter someone willing to take off with a person without even checking their background. He's brave, a foolishly brave boy. Wymond was on the verge of including an additional point in his evaluation of the boy when a significant memory rushed back to his mind. The boy is fortunate as well, he murmured, recalling how Lord Lucifer had specifically instructed everyone to withhold any information about Rias' whereabouts from the Phoenix household. If Lord Zeoticus had revealed her location to Riser Phoenix, I'm certain the young heir would have already killed this boy by now. He stumbled slightly when his right foot made contact with a small stone lying askew on the ground. Glancing down, he stared at the stone for a moment before crushing it under his boots. Fortunately for this boy, I was tasked with fetching Lady Rias, he said, a devious smile forming on his lips as a strange sensation flickered inside him. Nevertheless, that doesn't absolve him from punishment for eloping with our beloved lady. His smile took on a sinister edge, and for a fleeting moment, an ominous shadow of death darkened his visage. I will discipline him so severely that in the future he will think twice before even looking at a girl. There was a reason why his master chose him over the kind-hearted peerage members. Unlike those people, Wymond had no morals, and his master knew it. To complete his mission, he would go to any length possible, even if it meant killing that boy in front of Lady Rias to show her the harsh reality. Hee. Malevolent laughter echoed through the shadows as Wymond continued his leisurely stride towards his intended destination, a scene ripe with impending bloodshed. There, it didn't take long for him to arrive at the place, and as he did, Wymond took a deep breath, savoring the surroundings for a moment. It was a beautiful night, perfect for him to spill that boy's blood and paint the night red. He chuckled, feeling the surge of excitement after such a long time without a fight. But I have to restrain myself. Lord Lucifer wouldn't approve of a high-class devil like me killing a human in Yokai's territory. The excitement waned a little, but Wymond soon regained his composure and made his way toward the bright, open clearing where the boy stood alone, gazing at the stars. There he is, dash. So you are finally here? The madness-filled smile vanished instantly from Wymond's face when the boy whispered those words. Huh. He was quick to show his surprise. How did he know I was coming for him? The excitement within him was replaced with surprise and confusion when he noticed that the boy hadn't even turned to acknowledge his presence. I had a feeling we were being followed ever since we encountered those thugs, but I couldn't identify the person. Naruto abruptly pivoted and locked his gaze onto the individual, radiating a brilliant orange aura from his eyes. Now that you've finally revealed yourself, don't hesitate any longer and tell me, why have you been stalking us? His words were simple yet cold, tingling Wymond's body with excitement. So you knew, the man whispered, gazing into the boy's beautiful eyes as if they were a marvel. The sinister smile slowly crept back onto Wymond's face, exuding an aura of malevolence. Ah, I see. His voice trailed off, and with a slight bow, he continued, allow me to present myself, then. Seeing the boy's apparent lack of concern, Wymond smiled as that only served his anticipation. I am Wymond Hartel, faithful servant to none other than Zeoticus Gremry, the esteemed father of the young lady whom you have brazenly snatched from her house in Kuo. And now I stand before you, bearing a purpose. Thwack. It felt like a mere blur, or perhaps not even that. From Wymond's point of view, he hadn't even caught a glimpse of what was coming his way. But that was merely his own perception. Deep down, he knew he was already overpowered the moment droplets of blood began to escape from his mouth and nose, flowing like a chaotic river. He attempted to articulate a response to the unforeseen assault. Yet, to his dismay, not a single word escaped his mind. Wymond tried once more, but the outcome remained unchanged. Soon, darkness enveloped him, as the unyielding grip of unconsciousness seized his body. I should have known, was the haunting phrase that echoed in his ears before he was thrust into a living nightmare, a world even grimmer than death itself. Back at Inn, Rias had witnessed many beautiful sights in her life, but nothing could rival the breathtaking scenery she was currently looking at from her room's window. Every about it was beautiful, from the twinkling stars illuminating the night sky to the gentle, cool breeze tenderly caressing her face. It seemed as though the night was making an extraordinary effort to exude its utmost beauty. Where is he? However, the breathtaking beauty of the night failed to soothe the agony that surged through her heart. Has he left me again? The emotions within her stirred, giving rise to a storm that began to engulf her in anxiety. The more she pondered over his whereabouts, the more the storm within her grew. It was truly terrifying and awe-inspiring how, in just a few days, Naruto accomplished what others had been unable to do for years. He awakened dormant emotions within her, emotions that she had long abandoned, happiness and fear being the most prominent. Now, not only was she experiencing these emotions, but she was also struggling with them. They had become her vulnerability, causing her to do foolish things like shedding tears in front of a stranger and begging for his companionship on his journey. Trip. Rias's expression darkened imperceptibly at the mention of the journey that had brought them together. It's our first and last journey together. As the words left her lips, a wave of sadness washed over her, puzzling her with its intensity. Why am I feeling this way? She wondered, struggling to untangle the tangled emotions that were suddenly flooding her. At first, she viewed the trip as a simple escape from her confinement. However, now she couldn't deny the growing realization Naruto had transformed into something more than just a mere companion. He was weaving himself into the fabric of her life, becoming a part of it. In a short period of time, his influence over her had become so strong that it was leading her to engage in foolish actions, even to the extent of wishing to die with him. But it's because this trip is so important to him, and I want to see him smile more often. If accompanying him on this trip was what it cost to see him smile, then Rias was ready to do it. After all, considering all he has done for her in the past few days, the least she could for him was to keep him company on this trip. She was willing to blindly follow him anywhere, even to the heavens, as long as he promised to stay by her side. Her mind was in such a state that she was willing to give her life in exchange for genuine affection from a pure-hearted person, someone who saw her as more than just an object or a disposable pawn. And that someone was Naruto. Rias could see everything in his eyes. They were just like hers, pure and brimming with kindness and remorse. The only obstacle standing in their way was his pessimistic demeanor. He appeared to be in a state of deep despair, and she couldn't shake off the fear that, given the chance, he might abandon her and take his own life before reaching Fukuoka. The anxiety and anger surged as she gazed out the window of her room, anxiously anticipating the return of her companion. He had been missing for hours, leaving her clueless about his whereabouts. Although she could use her devil magic to locate him more quickly, she knew it would ultimately be futile. If he didn't want her by his side, there was nothing she could do to change his mind. The only thing she could do was either vent her anger through tears or wait patiently, and for now, Rias found solace in the latter option. She resolved to wait for him, be it 1 day, 2 days, or even an entire week. She was prepared to wait indefinitely if it meant she could escape her haunting past. But what if he never returns? She would then embark on her own journey to find him. She was prepared to do anything that could bring her closer to him. Let's just wait for him for now. Don't think about anything else. Just wait for him, she whispered, her eyes still fixed on the windowsill. Seconds turned into minutes, and minutes morphed into hours, yet he didn't return. The once serene room now filled Rias with a haunting silence, transforming the previously beautiful night into an ugly one. The stars lost their brilliance, and the cold breeze grew more biting as she inexorably waited for Naruto. A soft voice, one that Rias was certain she had heard before, broke the silence and eased her pain slightly. It didn't take long for Rias to turn around and see that it was none other than the owner of the inn where they were staying. She yearned for news about Naruto, hoping that he had sent her as his messenger, beckoning her to join him. All hope faded away as the lady, instead of divulging any information about Naruto, cast a sorrowful, remorseful gaze upon her. It was a gaze brimming with shame and regret, a gaze that she herself had often confronted in the reflection staring back at her. I sincerely apologize for intruding, miss. My purpose in coming here was solely to ensure your safety. Suki's words only heightened Rias's irritation. Check on me? But why? I'm perfectly fine, Suki-san. I understand, Rias-san, but a few hours ago, our security officer witnessed someone jumping out of the window of your room. When he informed me, I rushed down here immediately to ensure your well-being. Rias fell silent for a moment, weighing her words carefully. When she finally spoke, her voice was notably softer. I understand. Thank you, Suki-san, but I can assure you, I am perfectly fine. You don't need to worry about me anymore, she said with a faint smile, which Suki immediately returned. I'm glad to hear that, Rias-san, Suki murmured, casting her eyes around the room for one last check. During her inspection, she noticed something unusual. Where is Naruto-san? She inquired. As far as she knew, the boy and the girl were given a single room. I don't know. Rias' straightforward response took Suki by surprise. You don't know? What kind of answer is that, Rias-san? Suki immediately admonished the younger girl for her impolite reply. You're his wife, you should know where he went in the middle of the night. His wife. Rias was ready to argue back, but was interrupted by a familiar voice before she could utter a single word. I'm here. Naruto's voice filled the room, causing both women to turn around and see him resting casually on the windowsill. His tousled hair and thin-lipped expression gave him the appearance of someone who had just woken up from a deep slumber. Naruto-san. Rias gazed at the boy in silence, while Suki wasted no time in expressing her surprise. What are you doing there, and where have you been all this time? She asked in an amused yet concerned tone, her elderly voice betraying her feelings about the unexpected sight. Naruto blinked at the woman and sheepishly apologized for the inconvenience he had caused. I was just enjoying the night on the roof and didn't notice when my eyes closed on their own, he explained briefly, confident that it would suffice. His assumption was confirmed when the lady gently nodded her head. I understand, but you shouldn't climb to the roof like that, Naruto-san. It's not safe and goes against this establishment's customer policies. Despite scolding him for his carelessness, her tone did not carry a hint of threat or warning. It was more of a maternal scolding, and Naruto appreciated it. I apologize, Suki-san. I was unaware. Suki smiled at the boy. No problem, Naruto-san. Just don't do it again. After that, the lady began to leave their room, allowing Naruto to breathe a sigh of relief. Also, he felt his senses sharpen as Suki abruptly stopped at the wooden entrance and looked over her shoulder to glare at him. Don't leave Rias alone like that, Naruto-san. It's not good. Naruto was at a loss for words, but he mustered a small gesture of agreement, tilting his head down and nodding in response. Oh, okay. I promise, he whispered, feeling a surge of relief as the woman finally exited the room, leaving them alone together. Where were you? He didn't look at her. He couldn't. It was the second time he had left her alone like that without saying a word. On the roof. Tried stargazing, but it was boring. The answer received no response from her, at least not in words. Naruto was taken aback when she stopped arguing and remained silent. He saw it as a welcome change that saved them both from pointless debates, freeing up their time. Well, anyway, I think we should get to SLE. Are you truly happy with me being here, Naruto? Ria's question caught him off guard. He turned around to see her face, adorned with one of the saddest smiles he had ever seen. I mean, if you don't want me here, then I can leave. I don't want to ruin your trip. Her words were barely a whisper, but Naruto could still hear them. No, I'm not pleased with your presence, Rias, he replied, watching the smile fade from her beautiful face. But you are not here to make me happy. You are here to accompany me on these challenging and unfamiliar paths, Rias, and that is enough for me. His lips tightened into a thin line as the smile returned to her face, restraining himself from reciprocating with a small smile. Also, don't stress yourself by asking these types of questions. I was well aware of what I was getting into when I agreed to let you join me on this trip. That's why stop worrying about how I feel and enjoy the journey instead. It's our journey now, not mine anymore. Rias felt a surge of satisfaction, her face glowing. Okay, Naruto acknowledged her with a nod, getting ready to settle down on his bed. However, he was taken aback when Rias made an unexpected suggestion. Oh, and Naruto, try to cry less during nights. Crying causes significant loss of water and salt, which can be detrimental to your health. If this had happened a few years ago, Naruto would have laughed loudly to pretend he didn't understand. However, as time went by, he grew more mature. That's why he chose to flash her a small smile instead. All right. I'll remember that. Love? What do you want to know about it, Rias? Surzex, the ruler of the underworld, asked his beloved sister. What does it feel like? The man blinked in surprise at the unexpected question. Huh? He murmured, his confusion evident in his voice and face. His sister, annoyed but patient, simply sighed in response. I mean, how does it feel when you love someone? Does it feel good, or is it just a normal feeling? He finally grasped what his sister was trying to ask. So, you want to know how I felt when I started going out with Grafia? His question was met with an instant nod of approval from Rias. Well, it was an incredible feeling. If I had to capture it in a sentence, I'd say it was one of the most beautiful times of my life. Even the tragic atmosphere around us hardly ever affected me when I was with her. Her presence alone was enough to uplift my spirits. A nostalgic twinkle appeared in his eyes as he began reminiscing about the memories he and his wife had created together over all these years. Rias, who was listening intently to her brother, couldn't help but feel a mix of joy and sadness. She was filled with joy seeing the depth of love her brother held for his wife, yet sad at the realization that she might never have the chance to experience such love herself. Her life was meant to be controlled by others, powerful, influential people. Rias, her greenish-blue eyes snapped open, bringing her back to reality when she heard her brother's voice. Huh? She looked at him and noticed the worry in his eyes. Those worried eyes deepened her already low spirits, making her acutely aware of the suffering she had caused to the few people who loved her. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about something. It's okay, Rias. You're still young, and it's natural for children to daydream a lot, hee. Surzex tried to inject some humor into the situation, but unfortunately, his words had the opposite effect on his sister. Instead of laughing at his joke as he had expected, Rias simply stared at him with her empty eyes. Her gaze sent shivers down his spine, serving as an eerie reminder of his failures, the most significant of which was his failure to defend her against their father. You lived such a nice life, brother. Rias' words shattered Surzek's heart into countless fragments. They pierced him like icy needles, leaving no visible wounds behind. Unlike me, you have everything. Her voice was void of any sentiment, just like her expression. Rias Surzex was devastated to see her in that state. It was all because of his father that she was like that. Don't say that. You will soon have everything you desire. I won't, Rias countered immediately with a desolate tone. I know what will happen to me in the future, brother. You don't need to give me any more false hopes. They won't work. The winds gained momentum around them as Surzex tightly clenched his fists in frustration. I am not lying, Rias, he whispered, his heart pounding loudly in his chest. The emotions he felt at this moment were extraordinary. They shouldn't have been churning inside him. When I said everything would be fine, I was speaking the truth. You may not believe me, but I am sure that you won't spend your precious life with that stupid boy. He is not the one you are going to end up with. Every word he spoke carried such conviction that Rias seemed momentarily captivated by them. Then, who is supposed to be my partner? She asked eagerly, desperate to learn more about the person who held the key to escaping her current life. If her brother's words held any truth, this person had the power to make her life worth living, and that was all she desired. The response to her question came in the form of a smile, which left her utterly puzzled. It is your responsibility to find him, my dear little sister, Sirzex chuckled, fully aware of what she was about to say next. However, he decided to respond beforehand. No one helped me in finding Grafia Rias. I found her on my own, and that's exactly how you'll find him too. A comfortable silence settled between the two siblings. In the midst of the silence, the wind picked up once again, causing the trees around them to dance in perfect harmony. Rias, deep in thought about her brother's words, closed her eyes to revel in the natural symphony. The gentle rustling of leaves and the delightful chirping of insects were creating an incredible melody together. How? Sirzex blinked in confusion. Huh? He looked at his sister, and saw that she was gazing at him with a hopeful expression. How am I going to find him? Ria's question was quite innocent, considering she was just a child who barely understood the concept of love. However, Sirzex couldn't help but smile at her innocence. His sister was absolutely adorable. Here, he said, extending his hand and gesturing for Rias to take it. Hold my hand, he whispered, pleased when his sister immediately agreed to his request. Now what? Now, Sirzex hesitated for a moment before he gently clasped Rias' hand. Rias, who had been eagerly anticipating something momentous, couldn't help but let out a disappointed sigh when all her brother did was gently squeeze her hand. Is that it? She was undoubtedly dissatisfied with her brother's actions. Her hopes for something extraordinary were dashed once again, as her brother failed to deliver. Huh, is this all you could do, brother? Sirzek's smile widened further. Well, it did provide an answer to your question, he said, his eyes twinkling with amusement as he observed the confusion that washed over his sister's beautiful face. What? Rias exclaimed. How did that help answer my question? All you did was hold my hand. Her voice cracked a little at the end, indicating the anger was starting to seep out from inside her. You didn't feel anything? Rias shook her head. No. Why would I? She asked. Exactly. See, you answered your own question, Rias. Don't confuse me anymore, brother. Just explain it in simple words. Sirzek squeezed her hand once more. The reason you didn't sense anything unusual was because it was me, your brother, who did it. Huh! The devil's ruler let out a weary exhale. You don't love me, Rias, he groaned, not wanting to admit that someday she would find someone whom she was going to love more than him. Rias narrowed her eyes in confusion. But she was about to refute her brother's false claim, but halted as she finally grasped what he was trying to explain. Glancing back at their hands, she gasped as the realization dawned on her. Brother. The sound of his sister's stuttering was enough for Sirzek to realize that Rias had finally understood everything. Yes, he affirmed, nodding his head, his warm smile still radiant on his face. Rias untangled her hand from his and began staring at it as if it held the answer to all her questions. So, I'll feel something special inside me when the boy who is supposed to be my partner holds my hand? She whispered her question to her brother. Yes. Rias kept staring at her hand for a while more before a small, contented smile finally spread across her lips. I see. XXX, hold my hand. Riser blinked in disbelief at his future wife's strange request. What? He asked, his concern growing. He couldn't help but wonder if the stress of marrying him had caused her to lose her sanity. He was well aware of the effect he had on women, but this was taking things to a whole new level. Hold it. Riser couldn't ignore the venom in her voice. He swiftly realized that keeping her waiting was a mistake, so he gently took her hand in his. For a moment, the room fell silent as Rias kept her gaze fixed on him with a mixture of anger and fear in her eyes. No, Riser wanted to ask her what she meant by that, but before he could, the girl left the hall, leaving him alone with his thoughts. What was that about? He pondered, but dismissed it as yet another one of her eccentric gestures in an attempt to convince him that she was not the right person to marry. At least I got to feel her hand. XXX, Rias, meet Issei. Rias glanced up from her desk to see the people standing at the entrance of her office. Sona, she exclaimed, recognizing her friend. She started to stand up from her seat to greet her but paused when she noticed someone else standing beside her. Sona observed how her friend looked at Issei, and smiled as she noticed nothing but confusion. At least her friend wasn't annoyed like the last time she brought someone unknown to the office. He's Issei, remember the boy I told you about? She answered, hopeful that her friend would remember him without requiring another detailed explanation. Ah, him, Rias exclaimed, feigning excitement for the sake of her friend. She now understood why her friend had brought Issei along, and to be honest, Rias wasn't interested in what would happen next. She had already made her decision about her peerage clear. She didn't want to disturb more innocent lives by convincing them to join her peerage. As I assured you previously, I have thoroughly briefed him on everything and he is prepared to become a member of your peerage. Ria's smile wavered slightly. On one hand, she felt grateful to have a caring friend like Sona, but on the other, she couldn't help but feel sorrow thinking about what she was about to do. I don't think I need anything else. Don't be absurd, Rias. You missed the opportunity to rescue him that day as well, and now you're repeating the same mistake. He can be of great assistance to you, Rias. The red-haired girl nodded solemnly, wholeheartedly understanding what her friend was trying to tell her. I understand, she murmured, her voice tinged with sorrow and indecision. But what if he ends up injured during the… Sona decided to interrupt her once more. He won't. I can assure you of that, Rias, she stated firmly, her eyes brimming with conviction. Her unwavering confidence momentarily silenced Rias. I see. Rias stood up resolutely, gracefulness radiating from her every step, as she made her way towards the boy who stood silently at her friend's side. Issei, her eyes sparkled with a glimmer of unwavering hope as they locked onto his. If Sona's words held even the slightest hint of truth, Rias knew deep down that this young man would be the one to rescue her from the clutches of that harrowing nightmare. Why yes, her cheeks flushed, mirroring the shade of her hair, as she abruptly halted her leisurely walk directly in front of him. With a soft-spoken voice, she whispered, extending her hand in a gesture of greeting, pleased to meet you. Issei-kun. Nice to meet you too, Rias-senpai. A surge of anticipation filled her as their hands intertwined and their eyes met. However, that fascination quickly transformed into sadness when Rias found nothing but a veil of obscenity in his eyes. She gently squeezed his hand, putting her brother's theory to the test, only to be met with nothing but disappointment. Rias? Her gaze shifted away from his face and settled on Sona. I'm sorry, Sona, she whispered, a pathetic sad smile gracing her lips. Huh, I can't do it. Rias! As the beautiful greenish-blue eyes snapped open to reality, they came face to face with another pair of stunning blue eyes. Naruto, she said, recognizing the owner of those eyes almost instantly. What are you doing? Weren't we supposed to be sleeping right now? Rias raised her hands to her face and gently rubbed her eyes, trying to shake off the last traces of sleep. It's already morning, Rias. You've been asleep for 10 hours now. That statement jolted her senses. As she realized she had once again failed to get up on time, Rias quickly rose to her feet and scanned her surroundings. In the past few days, whenever she overslept, Naruto would carry her on his back, taking on part of the journey while she remained sound asleep. Huh! We're still at the inn. To say she was shocked would be an understatement. She was utterly astounded, for there was absolutely no way Naruto had waited for her to wake up. Naruto, who was watching her every move with sharp eyes, turned away to conceal his face. Yes. You said you didn't like it when I traveled while you were asleep, so this time I waited for you to wake up, he replied, his tone hovering between shyness and embarrassment. Really? The warmth and surprise in Rias' voice did not go unnoticed by him. He nodded in response. Also, breakfast is ready in the other room. Freshen up quickly before it gets cold. Oh okay, Phoenix Manor, fear. It was an anomaly that Riser Phoenix had never had to worry about in his life. The concept of fear was strange and unknown to him. To Riser, it existed only in the pages of mankind's history, fictional tales, and the lives of weak individuals. Fear had never found a place in his life, or so he had believed until this moment. What has happened to him? Riser felt a slight tremor of fear for the first time, but it quickly gave way to overwhelming terror. Who could have done such a thing to him? His gaze wandered to the corner of the room, where the source of his fear lay, motionless on the cold floor. Wyman Hartel's dead body. Contrary to what people may have heard, the man's body was perfectly intact, without any wounds or injuries, appearing remarkably healthy for someone who had been declared dead just minutes ago. However, the dead body was not the source of Riser's fear. His fear lingered somewhere else, far away in the human world, where his wife was likely involved in an affair with him at an inn. A boy. Fear once again gripped his heart. Riser was unwilling to hear the same answer. It seemed impossible that a mere boy could be responsible for all this. How could a single boy, with such precision, eliminate a high-class assassin from the Gremory house? Riser was confused. If the information he had gathered about Wyman was indeed accurate, then he was in deep trouble. Wyman, a high-class devil, was nearly as dangerous as Riser himself. If that boy could kill Wyman so effortlessly, then who could prevent him from doing the same to me? Riser's eyes squeezed shut as he struggled to dispel the haunting image that had plagued his mind ever since encountering Wyman's lifeless body. The same boy killed a small group of Yakuza men a few days ago. Fear surged through Riser's mind, doubling its grip on him. What? He stammered, berating himself for his easy loss of control. But you don't have to worry about anything, Riser. Wyman died because he was alone, but you aren't. You can take your entire peerage with you when you go there to meet him. In an instant, the fear dissipated entirely from his face and was swiftly replaced by a well-known air of arrogance that had brought ruin to countless lives, including those of devils. Peerage? Riser chuckled. Yes, peerage. The fear that had been lingering in his mind transformed into anger as he began to envision all the obscene things that man must be doing to his wife. I'll kill him, Dad. The breakfast they had just enjoyed was absolutely amazing. Rias couldn't help but acknowledge that fact. Throughout her lifetime, she had savored a wide array of dishes from numerous restaurants. However, never before had she encountered something so incredibly delicious that it managed to uplift her entire mood in a matter of seconds. As if the delicious food wasn't enough, Naruto also took her by surprise. Today, he was behaving very differently, which she had no complaints about because, at least, he was talking to her normally instead of giving her the cold shoulder, as he always does. "It's beautiful," Rias whispered, gazing at the trees and plants swaying harmoniously in the wind. They were currently seated on the back porch of their inn, and judging by Naruto's smile, he was clearly enjoying the view too. "Yes, it is." Ria's smile grew wider. "So, were you able to sleep today, Naruto?" she inquired, well aware of how difficult it was for him to get a good night's rest. From what she had observed thus far, Naruto had trouble sleeping peacefully due to the nightmares that plagued his mind. They were always there to haunt him whenever he tried to sleep. "Yes, I did sleep for an hour or two, I think," Naruto answered, his eyes still gazing at the view in front of him. It was mesmerizing, as it reminded him of the time he had spent with his mentor on his training trip. They used to stay at inns like this often, it was routine for them, and he used to love every second of it. "Only 2? He nodded his head. You should increase the amount of time you sleep, Naruto," Rias whispered, her voice filled with concern and sadness. "If you continue to ignore your sleep like this, it will have a detrimental effect on your health." Her words managed to elicit a smile from the young man. "It's alright, Rias. I've grown used to this now." Naruto spoke with undeniable conviction. His sleeping schedule had been disrupted the moment war broke out in his world. During the war, he found it nearly impossible to sleep, with the ever-present danger constantly looming over them. Even after the war finally came to an end, haunting nightmares of his fallen comrades continued to plague his mind. "But still, you should try to get proper sleep." Knowing that she wouldn't let the topic go until he accepted her suggestion, he decided to accept defeat. "Okay," he murmured. Rias was about to speak again, but she paused when she realized what he had just done. "Hold on, did you actually take my advice?" She glanced at him, not at all surprised to find him still looking at the trees, avoiding her gaze as if it were some kind of contagious plague. "Yes, I did." "Is there a problem with that?" Ria's cheeks flushed slightly as she saw the expression on his face while he spoke those words. "He's embarrassed." How adorable! It was the first thought that crossed her mind, and before she realized it, she found herself blushing as well. "I'll soon die, so what's the problem?" In an instant, both the blush and the smile vanished from her face. These words were the epitome of her unhappiness. Every time a glimmer of hope appeared in her life, a dark cloud formed by these words would roll in and envelop it, leaving nothing but gloom and sorrow in its wake. "Rias?" she gasped as Naruto's voice jolted her back to harsh reality. Still breathless, she glanced at his face and furrowed her brows, disappointed as she was about to meet his gaze when he looked away once more. "Naruto," she whispered his name, hoping he would hear her. Give me your hand." Uncomfortable silence enveloped them as soon as she spoke those words, and for a few minutes neither of them attempted to break it. It was a necessary moment, and they both understood that. Here Naruto was the first to break the silence as he extended his hand to Rias. Although he was unsure of her intentions, he was more than willing to go along with it if it brought her happiness. Rias, sitting silently beside him, trembled with anticipation as she saw him nudge his hand towards her. "Brother," she gulped and finally raised her hand. Her chilled skin brushed against his warm skin and for a moment, Rias felt an unusual sensation awaken within her. But before she could delve deeper into this new feeling, it vanished without a trace. "Huh!" She blinked, unable to comprehend what had just occurred. Shouldn't she have felt something different? Rias couldn't help but ponder. If her brother's words were true, then something remarkable should have happened at that moment. However, it did not. A sense of sadness began to well up within her heart as Rias confronted the bitter truth. Naruto isn't that person either. She was certain that he was the one. He possessed all the qualities, yet, sadly, he was not. Could you please release my hand now, Rias? It's starting to feel uncomfortable." Rias immediately untangled her hand from his and looked away from him. "So why did you do it?" "Do what?" Grabbing my hand. "I mean there must be a reason behind it, right, Rias?" Rias nodded silently. "I just wanted to check your temperature," she whispered, her voice lacking the happiness and enthusiasm it had before. "I understand," Naruto chuckled softly. "So, what did you find out?" "Am I okay?" he asked, keeping his eyes fixed on the back of her head. "Yes." "Then why are you sad?" Rias' eyes widened slightly. "I am not sad. I'm just feeling sleepy," she lied, unwilling to share her thoughts with him. She was already held in low regard by him in such matters, and she was determined not to further diminish herself in his eyes. Exclaimed Naruto, his wide eyes fixated on Rias as if she were an otherworldly being. "You want to sleep again already?" The shock in his voice was evident, catching the attention of everyone, including Rias. "Why yes." Naruto continued to gaze at her for a while longer before letting out a sigh. "Alright, then just take it easy. We can head to the main town in the evening," he whispered, a hint of disappointment in his voice, as he had been excited about exploring the town with her today. "Thanks." Anyway, I'll go out and grab us something tasty for lunch while you take a rest, alright? Rias nodded and slowly turned her head to look at him. However, instead of being greeted by his face, she was met with his back. The boy was already headed towards the exit, leaving her with no option but to watch him with a distant gaze in her eyes. And they are. She tried to speak out, to assure him that everything was alright, but her words vanished as the world around her began to transform into an eerie nightmare. The once enchanting trees and plants were now looking sinister and haunting. She surveyed her surroundings and quickly realized that everything was undergoing this haunting metamorphosis. The inn, the porch, the grass, the trees, every element of her reality was being consumed by this terrifying cycle. Naruto. She whispered his name, hoping he would hear and rescue her, as he always had before. Naruto. Her gaze shifted towards him, her eyes filled with sadness when she realized he was too far away to hear. Disheartened, she cast her eyes over her surroundings once more. No, she whimpered and closed her eyes, unable to muster the courage to keep looking at them. What is happening? Rias found herself in turmoil. Everything had been fine just a moment ago, but now, things were turning unpleasant with each passing second, and her heart detested it. A moment ago. She opened her eyes and glanced at the spot where Naruto had been sitting just a while before. Her eyes remained fixed on that spot for a while before the truth finally dawned on her. Naruto, he was the reason everything had been so delightful and vibrant to look at in the recent days. It was his mere presence by her side that had made that night on the mountain bearable when they had first encountered each other. She didn't have to touch or hold his hand to sense the difference. Him being around me is enough. Her eyes shimmered with a hint of nostalgia as she recollected her brother's words once more. You will find him on your own, Rias. I have faith in your abilities, brother. Precious, crystalline tears trickled down her cheeks, leaving gentle imprints on the smooth wooden floor. Girls were strange. In his lifetime, Naruto had encountered a multitude of strange individuals, from a literal god to a despicable creature who single-handedly initiated a war. However, he never struggled to manage them and their tempers. Yet there was one group of people that consistently perplexed him. Girls. They were strange, and their actions even more so. Their words were deceiving, contradicting their actions. If Naruto was to describe them, he would say they were even more unpredictable than himself, which was not a compliment by any means. What happened to Rias? Every other thought faded away as his mind focused its attention on the girl who had become an integral part of his life in the past few days. She was acting so strangely today. The image of the expression she had worn while holding his hand still lingered in his memory. What was her intention? Since leaving the inn, he had been thinking about this question endlessly. There was something unique about her. He was sure of it. But what? He needed to figure it out because if he didn't, it would continue to bother him the entire trip. After many months, he was finally trying to act normally around someone, but as soon as he did, Rias started behaving strangely. Am I moving too quickly with the change? He didn't know, but perhaps that was the reason. Ag, so annoying. Erosenin was right. Girls are annoying. Rias was wrong. When she first arrived in town, she saw it as a small, picturesque piece of land nestled among exotic flora and fauna. However, as she walked through the town, she realized that it was much larger than she had originally thought. Where am I going to find him now? She muttered, gazing at the bustling streets teeming with countless people. All I can see are shops and small stalls. With a final glance at the shops, her eyes returned to the throng of people. Naruto! Rias shouted his name, desperately hoping he would hear her. However, deep down, she knew it was futile. There was no way he could hear her amidst the chaos of the busy street. Nar, excuse me, madam, are you lost? A warm voice interrupted Rias, instantly grabbing her attention and compelling her to turn around. Huh! The way the person called out to her, Rias was expecting to encounter a shopkeeper fully prepared to sell her items and useless accessories. Instead, she was greeted by the wrinkled face of an old woman. I asked if you are lost, madam? Rias finally understood the message the old lady was trying to convey. No, I'm not lost, she whispered and flashed the woman a small smile, one meant to conceal her anxiety and dismay. I'm just trying to find my husband. She paused before continuing. My husband left me alone to grab some food, and he still hasn't returned. The true significance of that word was still foreign to her. Although it didn't feel as painful as when she was forced to use it for Riser, it still felt odd nonetheless. That still means that you are lost, Rias. My name is Rias. Please use it instead of madam because you are clearly older than me. The old lady chuckled at the statement. I see. In that case, Rias, it seems that you are still lost, my child. Rias' cheeks turned red. Well, I suppose I am, kind of, she mumbled in an embarrassed tone. Haha, it happens, Rias. The giggles of the old woman only made Rias more embarrassed. Anyway, do you have a picture of your husband? If so, I might be able to help you because I have been standing here in the street for hours now. Rias's face lit up at the question. Of course! She exclaimed with enthusiasm. I actually have a picture of him right here. Her excitement grew as she reached for her necklace and delicately unclasped the pendant from her neck. Take a look. With a gentle snap, the heart-shaped locket unfolded to reveal two beautiful pictures, one of herself and the other featuring Naruto. Upon seeing the necklace, Rias couldn't help but feel grateful to Naruto for his insight. It was his idea for her to wear a necklace like that. Initially hesitant and embarrassed about it, she eventually embraced the idea after discovering its benefits, even if it meant projecting an image of a married woman. Ah, this gentleman. I think I spotted him heading towards the south after he declined to purchase one of my exceptional items. Ria's face brightened at the lady's response. Thank you. She was about to leave but paused upon noticing something peculiar in the answer. Hold on, unique items? What do you mean? The response to Ria's question arrived in the form of a cardboard display with various types of peculiar items hanging from its edges. This, the old woman declared, pointing to a pair of rings resting in the center of the box. I showed them to him because he appeared to be a newly married man, but he declined to purchase them because he didn't believe what I told him about these rings. What did you tell him? Rias asked the lady. These rings are very powerful, my dear. My grandpa used to create them, and it is believed that they have the ability to bind the couple who wears them together for eternity. I see. Rias was still physically present in the conversation with the lady, but her mind was completely fixated on the plastic package which dangled from the corner of the box. Do you like these threads? It didn't take long for the old lady to notice where her potential customer's attention was directed. They are very special as well. A small smirk appeared on her wrinkled lips as Rias finally looked at her. The girl was under her spell, she observed. Now it was up to her to decide what she wanted to sell to the girl. Special? Rias' interest was piqued, and there was no way she was going to leave without learning about the story of those threads. Nodded the old lady, a gentle smile playing on her lips. Those, dear, are the red threads of fate. Rias' eyes widened slightly upon hearing the name. An annoying smirk finally graced the old lady's face. Red threads of fate. Naruto found himself confused once again. In just one day, he had gotten lost in random thoughts twice. First with Rias, when she suddenly changed her mood, and now, over their lunch plans. Where should I buy lunch for us? And what should I get? He felt unsure about everything at the moment. Normally, Rias would always be there to assist him with lunch and dinner, but today, she wasn't available either. He was completely on his own, like in the old days. I think I'll just buy ramen. Naruto. Every thought vanished from his mind as a familiar voice entered his ears. Rias? He spun around instantly, and was astonished to see a joyful Rias hurrying toward him. Yes. The girl suddenly halted her run in front of him, gasping for air as fatigue started to take its toll on her body. What are you doing here? Didn't you want to sleep? Rias shook her head. No, I'm fine, she managed to say between heavy breaths. I wanted to be here and explore the town with you. Naruto blinked in confusion. What is happening? He wondered, unable to comprehend what had caused this sudden shift in her behavior. Concern filled his voice as he asked, Are you alright, Rias? Now, he was truly worried about her mental well-being. I'm absolutely fine, Naruto. Naruto wasn't convinced. If she truly was perfectly fine, she wouldn't have come here alone to look for him. That wasn't in her nature. Give me your hand. His concern deepened even further. Rias, just do it. Although unsure, he refrained from debating with her and cautiously extended his hand towards her. Here, he whispered, his heart pounding with unease for his partner's well-being. Nice. Naruto braced himself for yet another moment of awkward hand-holding, but his expectations were shattered when Rias did something completely unexpected. Instead of grasping his hand like she had done earlier at the inn, she started to wrap something delicate around his wrist. Glancing downwards, Naruto noticed that she was tying a small piece of vibrant red thread. What's this for? He couldn't help but ask, curiosity lacing his voice. Nothing. Just protecting you from ghosts. The mere mention of ghosts sent shivers down Naruto's spine. How is this thread expected to help me with that? His voice sounded steady, but an attentive observer could still detect traces of fear. Ghosts don't come near the color red. They hate it. Unaware of the smile gracing Rias' lips as she tied the thread around his hand, Naruto gulped audibly. Really? He asked, undoubtedly touched by her decision to go out of her way to buy something for him, even if it was for something as trivial as ghosts. Rias nodded her head gently. Naruto was about to thank her, but stopped when he noticed the absence of a red thread on Rias' hands. Hey, where is your thread? He asked, still searching for it somewhere on her limbs. Rias, who was on the brink of completing her task, lifted her gaze and beamed at him. I don't need one. I already have red hair, Naruto. Her smile broadened as Naruto's shoulders slouched in embarrassment. My bad. It's fine, Naruto. Realizing that she wouldn't get a better opportunity than this, Rias instinctively reached out and firmly held Naruto's hand. Well then, let's continue our journey to find some lunch, she exclaimed, completely oblivious to the slight blush that appeared on Naruto's face. Oh okay. The wind picked up, causing their hair to swirl wildly. In the beautiful choreography of Rias' red locks, one could catch a glimpse of a thin, red strand swaying gracefully between them.